All right, I'm calling the organizational meeting to order. We have nothing to report out from closed session, and we're going on to the oath of office for Sheldon and I.
All right. So we are pleased to seat two standing board members again for a 4-year term. And we'll start with Board President Webster. I'm going to read the oath of office to you, and if you could repeat after me.
Okay.
I won't go too fast.
Thank you. I'm old.
So this is under government section 1360-1363 and 3105, section 3, article 20 of the state constitution. It's from the state of California in the county of Sonoma. Please repeat after me. I, Ellen Webster.
I, Ellen Webster,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of California
and the Constitution of the state of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic.
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of California,
and the Constitution of the state of California,
that I take this obligation freely,
that I take this obligation freely
without mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, and we have Trustee Jen that we will be doing the oath from. We ready? I, Sheldon Jen.
Can't hear you.
Sheldon, you're on mute.
Uh-oh. I would go in, I'd drop yourself and come back in. While we're doing this, you know, I can't help but say that, you know, I look at this oath in an entirely different way. I'll just say that.
I'm not even crying this time, y'all.
This oath carries a lot of weight in my mind.
Especially thinking about the.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and we are so glad that we can. All right, here we go. I, Sheldon Jen.
I, Sheldon Jen,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of California
and the Constitution of the state of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of California,
and the Constitution of the state of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will well and faithfully discharge those duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
All right.
Doing a comment, I cried anyway.
The next step is nomination and election of board officers. I believe.
I would like to nominate Joanna Pond for president of the board.
I second. The third.
And
All in favor?
I,
Hi.
Aye. Good.
That was unanimous.
Yes, it was.
You didn't ask me, Gary, if I wanted, but yes.
Yeah, Joanna's like,
You don't have a choice.
that's not true. That's not true.
Tag, you're it. Matt,
Guys, I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. Show us your sweatshirt.
There you go.
Maddie, you want?
Yes, I would like to nominate Sheldon Jen for the board clerk.
Second or
Second.
third.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Yay.
Cool. Okay.
Congratulations, you guys.
Yes, I'm
This
sure.
is
you guys
awesome.
do a
But
great
to be
job.
clear,
And,
Ellen and Maddie still have to finish this meeting. They don't get off that easy.
Yes.
Oh, and my job is so hard, but I do want to thank you, Ellen, because you navigated us through 2 years that are, I think, pretty unprecedented. And you had to have a whole new board, the passing of Frank, and then social and cultural upheavals, and then COVID, and just the past 10 months have been, as we all know, very difficult on everybody, and you've navigated it for us, and I really, really thank you and appreciate you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ditto.
We're all very, very, very lucky to have you and have you as our most senior board member as you enter your second term. So thank you for everything, and I'm so glad you're staying on with all of us. And
Mhm.
So,
thank you 4 of you for serving, so I don't have to.
so I normally don't say
You'll
anything,
have your turn.
but I will here. The best compliment that I ever heard anyone say about Trustee Webster was, and he shall remain nameless. He said, we don't always agree on everything, but she really listens. She really tries to seeks to understand, and she also, it's very important for her that she communicates her thoughts and wants you to understand where she's coming from, but she doesn't put the wall up right away, and that for that she's a great trustee to work with. So and I really see that day in, day out in her work, not only with the board, but with other individuals in the district.
Thank you, Gary. Now I'm gonna cry.
Can
Okay.
I say something about Ellen? I want to say something about Ellen too. I think what stands out the most is how much people trust you. I've come to trust you. I know I can come to you with anything. You're very supportive. Like Gary says, you always listen, even if we don't agree. You always listen to my point of view. I know I've sent parents your direction, and I just want to thank you so much for taking us all under your wing. I know it was not easy for you to lose your whole board, and so I just really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Likewise, very deeply grateful, Ellen, for onboarding me and for guiding us through this really challenging time. And I also want to thank Joanna for being willing to step up.
Yes.
I think you've been our most vocal advocate on issues of educational equity and social justice, which I think are at the top of our plate right now, or our agenda right now. And so I'm really grateful for your willingness to lead us in this time.
And I feel really good about handing the gavel over to you. It's a good thing, and I feel very comfortable with it. So, okay, let's move on before we all start crying.
Ha! Now you all know how I feel every freaking board meeting. It's exhausting.
I usually get.
So for my first act as president, can I ask now Trustee Webster to, just for continuity's sake, continue moderating this meeting?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Joanna. Okay. Next one, appointment of superintendent to secretary.
I moved to make Gary and Michelle be our secretary. Haha.
Do we vote on that, Gary? I don't remember.
Yeah, if you want it, you have to appoint a secretary. I'm more than happy to have one of you take that role on if you want, but typically it's our responsibility.
Yes, I nominate Gary for secretary.
I second.
Okay.
With us all understanding that Michelle Woeful is doing most of the secretarying.
He is
Just want to give her a shout out. She is
Michelle is doing most of
Awesome.
the secretarial. That is
Michelle,
accurate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome,
Favor?
Lizzie.
All in favor?
I,
Bye.
Opposed? Okay. Selection of representatives and alternate representatives to fill vacancies on the Sonoma County Committee on School District Organization. Do they ever meet?
That comes up every time that we do this.
I volunteered. I haven't ever heard.
We have never
Thanks.
met in, that I know of in the last 10 years. However, if they should ever meet in a committee, would we want to have a representative? Probably would want to have a representative on
Yes.
the school district organization. So it would be wise to probably have somebody, but it's not required.
But I have gotten, like, they'll mail things like to nominate people. So it's honestly 2 or 3 mailings a year.
I'll do it.
I nominate Ellen Webster for that fun job.
second.
The title I already forget.
There's no meeting, so I'll do it. Okay, and we need an alternate, blah, 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 an alternate.
I
don't mind being the
nominate
alternate.
Quinn to be the alternate.
Yes.
Perfect.
So you're going to combine those, sounds like, for a motion for Ellen Webster to be the representative with Caitlin Quinn serving as alternate.
All in favor? Or do we need?
Aye.
Need
Aye.
a second?
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, unanimous. And board meeting dates. I'm assuming you all had the opportunity to look at those dates. Is there any discussion or questions about them?
They meet my very high standard of that they make sense.
Okay, there we go. All in, I need a
I
second.
move to approve the proposed board dates for this school year or whatever,
Do I have
calendar
a
year.
second?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that business is done. Moving on, adoption and approval of agenda for January 12th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda with an addition before presentations and special recognitions to add a time for board member comment.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
And so, Miss Trustee Pond, speaking for the whole board.
I mean, you guys can speak as well.
What?
I just wanted, I hope that you guys feel free to make statements, comments if you want. I just wanted to say something about the horrific events of last week. I know we're all shocked, took days to process. I think we're all still processing. But I think, well, I know that for some time now, we've been hearing that the biggest threats to our safety are white supremacy as well as misinformation. And we kind of saw that all come to a head. Sorry, I'm still upset about this. We saw that, thank you. We saw that come to a head last Wednesday. And so it just made me ask, like, are we doing as much as we possibly can as educators to combat those two things on our campuses? We all participate in these systems, but are we also working to dismantle these systems as well as provide students with how to read something and determine if it's truthful or not? And so I just want us, I guess I'll just say publicly, I know that this is where we all stand, to continue working towards those efforts of looking at our biases, prejudices, calling them out, and also working with our students to recognize misinformation. And I think, again, like, we can't just be thinking about the safety. Right now we're thinking about the health of our kids in terms of COVID. When we're on campus, we're thinking about safety in terms of physical safety, but we have to also really put more emphasis on mental safety as well, and that goes into the school climate issues. So that's all. That's just what I wanted to say. And anyone else, feel free, please, to speak.
I would like to also say that in giving that oath about upholding the Constitution, it really struck me that all the Congress is trying to do is their constitutional duty. And so upholding the Constitution, I don't know how many of our representatives have actually read the Constitution. I taught it, but it just really struck me that that is something that our government has seemed to have moved away from. And it also struck me when watching it, I kept thinking about the Black Lives Matter protest in Washington, D.C., how there were helicopters and National Guard, and they cleared everybody off so that Trump could hold up his Bible. And I'm just wondering if those protesters or those rioters had been Black, if it would have been, how different it would have been. And there, so it just really drove home the idea of systemic racism to me.
I just wanted to add, I mean, echoing everything that Trustee Webster and Trustee Pond have said, but that I am super grateful that I came up in the Petaluma City Schools system, actually, because that's where my first little activism started. And as a teenager, I absolutely did not think it was activism. But, you know, because of teachers like Mrs. Biancalana and Miss Lee and Miss Weir and Mr. Griffin, rest in peace, I knew what the Constitution said, and I knew what my rights were, and me and one other student never stood for the freaking Pledge of Allegiance because that was our right to not do that. So I'm really grateful for the education that I had, and I want all of our students to feel that way, and I want all of our staff to feel supported in freedom of speech, and I very much value freedom of speech, but I also recognize where that ends, and the incitement of violence does not fall under that freedom, and the president and the members of Congress who have incited violence need to see repercussions for their actions.
Thank
Just
you.
a quick tag on. Next week, I'm starting a class. It's called Policy, Process, and Civic Engagement. That's what I teach at San Francisco State. In the first session, I read the Letter to America by John Lewis upon his funeral, which was just, 8 months ago, something like that.
It was,
And the line that really sticks out to me these days and last week was, he said, democracy is not a state, it's an act. And that's something that resonates with me now. It's what I try to tell, and it's what we try to produce in my classroom. It's what I hope the 87 people online right now take to heart, that our democracy is not something to be taken for granted. It has to be nurtured, it has to be fed, and we can't be neutral bystanders. We have to act on our democracy if we believe in it.
thank you, Sheldon.
I feel compelled to say something, but you all have been eloquent in saying, I'm just, if any of you have seen hashtag guy on porch, of the guy in Washington, D.C., yelling at the protesters. And he's like a 60-year-old lawyer in D.C., white guy, and he's just screaming at them, and that's how I felt. I don't know, I've lived a long time, and this breaks my heart, and it's a culmination of 50 years of activism on my part, and that it just didn't feel like, I just hope that we can get past it.
Thank you, Maddie.
And I know people have issues with us sometimes being vulnerable, but I think there's a time and a place. This is a place for it. And I hope that the students see that we are human like you, and please reach out if you need to speak with anyone about this.
Yes,
Definitely.
reach out to any of us. We will all respond. Okay.
I might respond while crying, but that's
Okay. Here we come to the fun part. Student reports to the board. Let's start with Kenilworth Junior High.
All right, I'm going to promote our presenters and then I'm going to share my screen.
And again, Ashley, I'm going to call them in the order that it's on my piece of paper. Okay.
Excellent. Okay, if you are both on, go for it.
Well, if you don't know me, my name is Mary Lobster, and I go to Kenilworth Junior High, and I'm part of the ASB leadership class.
Hi, my name is Ryan. I go to Kenilworth Junior High, and I'm part of ASB leadership class.
Once a month, teachers distribute materials for their classes as students and parents drive through the blacktop in the back of campus.
Our teachers are doing an incredible job of managing the virtual class environment. Oftentimes, teachers are managing multiple screens. Our instructional assistants, we have been doing an amazing job supporting our teachers and students during distance learning.
Our planter box in the shape of a K for Kenilworth has been weeded and planted by our food services staff along with district maintenance. It looks great.
Although distance learning, we continue to have virtual spirit days. Students are dressing up in Zoom classes. The adults on campus are also doing the best they can to maintain moral and dress up for spirit days.
Makeup Picture Day was a success. Staff checked for COVID symptoms before students were allowed out of the cars to get their makeup picture taken.
Mr. Hawley encourages students to challenge him in safe social distance competitions. So far, he has been challenged to competitions such as art drawing, a chess match, basketball free throws, pop flies, and solving a Rubik's Cube.
Some teachers have asked for second monitors for distance learning. Thanks to PTSA, they were able to give out grants to requesting teachers.
Halloween festivities were a huge success despite distance learning. Teachers and students dress up for their Zoom classes, and teachers and PTSA pass out 150 pounds of candy to students at the Halloween drive-thru. Teachers dressed up and waved to the students as they drove by.
Teachers are getting quite creative with their lessons from a distance. Can you believe that these art students' creations are made of toilet paper?
Safety precautions are in place, and KJHS has had one of cohort of students that begin in November. We are using the ultraviolet germicidal airflow system. It purifies the air within a classroom or office. There are plastic shields around each student in the cohort. We are trying to be as safe as possible. And it has been wonderful to have a tiny group of students back on this campus.
Without students on campus, the increase in wildlife has been tremendous. It has been amazing to see the red-tailed hawks fighting with the crows and snakes fighting their way into the gym.
Wow.
To keep up with the staff morale, we have continued our yearly tradition of November. Both students and staff go vote over a Google form. This year's theme was I've seen many things in my lifetime. Mr. Stolpe was crowned the November champion.
In December, we had a drive-through pickup for Kenilworth Spiritwear. Everyone remained safe, and it's nice to know students and families continue to want to purchase our clothing, even though many of them have never stepped foot on this campus.
We had a winter holiday drive-through before winter break. As they drive by or drive through, they get a sense of how much
Somebody froze.
Good cookies, and other holiday goodies, while following all safety guidelines, of course.
Instead of the traditional winter band concert, Miss Hawkins and the Kenilworth band students participated in a virtual musical performance that represented pieces from entire class periods as well as small assembled duets.
Thank you. Got some amazing teachers there. Okay.
I want to know if the teachers are making baseball cards of those baseball cards, because I personally would like to collect them.
Very sweet. Okay, Petaluma Junior High.
Hi, I'm Katya. I'm from Petaluma Junior High from the leadership class, and we have a video we would like to share with you guys.
Hi, I'm Sophia and welcome to our video where we will be highlighting exciting news and upcoming events at PJHS. Starting off small, our school has just been repainted, going from brown and green to our wonderful school colors, purple and white. We think this new look is a great improvement for our school campus and we can't wait for our future students to enjoy it. Now on to Amelia, who will tell us a little bit about this upcoming Spirit Week.
Hello, my name is Amelia. We've had many awesome Spirit Weeks over the past year. Our fellow students and I dressed up for Spirit Week before holiday break. We had a Spirit Week before our holiday break that was very awesome. The outfits were awesome and very creative. We even had a holiday movie Kahoot before break. Many students participated. It went very well.
Hi, my name is Maddie. And my name's Kira. And today we are going to talk about the Candy Cane Handout / food drive. Last semester, PJHS collected 865 food items for the Redwood Empire Food Bank. We helped many families in need that day by collecting food. We have learned all about food insecurity and how it has impacted many families.
Thank you, Maddie. Also, PJHS handed out candy canes as students picked up supplies for the spring semester. Something I learned about food insecurity was how serious it is. I learned that millions of people don't have food and can't afford it. I'm so glad that we got to help so many families by doing the food drive. Thank you for everyone who helped by donating canned foods. We really appreciate it. Now, passing on to Jalissa with the LumaCon convention. Thank you.
I want to announce the winner of LumaCon, but first, LumaCon is a free comic convention for youth that celebrates creativity and literacy. And now for the winners.
Hi, I'm Sabrina, and I'm here to tell you about all the wonderful virtual clubs we formed here at PJHS. Here we have the Anime and Manga Club, the Virtual Drama Club, the Tech Tuesday Club, the Gay Straight Alliance Club, the Superhero Club, the Speech and Debate Club, the Photography Club, the Drumline Club, and the PJHS Book Club. I hope you loved learning about all the different clubs we have here, and if you did, then great, and my name is Sabrina. If you didn't, then my name is Bob. And now on to Garrick.
Hello, my name is Garrett, and today I'm going to tell you about the PES generous donation to us at PJHS. The kind folk at Petaluma Educational Foundation gave us a wonderful donation to help boost our Monday morning announcements program. This funding will allow us to purchase a green screen for cool backgrounds and many more possibilities. This fund will also go towards HD cameras, microphones, and computers. During Monday morning announcements, the computers can sometimes get a little glitchy and unreliable, henceforth making the quality not the best. These cameras will improve our quality of work and help our students build 21st century skills. Once again, thank you, PEF.
Hi, I'm Kaya, and I'm going to be telling you about the Student Store. This year, we moved the Spirit and Student Store online. Visiting the Banton Student Store, you can purchase many Petaluma Junior High School merchandise. The store includes shirts, hats, lanyards, and soon to be more.
The money that we earn from the sales goes towards the school's activities and equipment. It will also represent the spirit of Petaluma Junior High School. Thank you for listening to our spotlight.
That was fabulous. Thank you. That was
Thank
wonderful.
you.
Carpe diem.
Mallory, are you on? There she is.
All right. Hello there. My name is Mallory Tucker, and I'm a junior at Carpe Diem High School. I've been attending Carpe since my sophomore year, and I hope to graduate in December next year. Some things we've been up to since we presented to the board last January. In May, instead of a traditional graduation ceremony, the staff of both Carpe Diem and Sonoma Mountain took the graduation ceremony on the road, visiting every graduate at their home. Caps and gowns were provided for each graduate, and when the staff showed up, they had a large graduation banner for each school, took pictures with the graduates, and gave each graduate a yard sign, balloons, and a gift bag. The families were amazed and very appreciative of the effort making this happen. This year, both Carpe Diem and Sonoma Mountain have been at capacity since early in the semester. Carpe Diem had 4 graduates this year, while Sonoma Mountain had 2. Each school has a wait list, and we are enrolling students as room allows. We are still utilizing the services of Mentor Me and Martin Trevaseo to address suspension rates at both sites. Through this work, we only had 1 suspension between the schools last year, up until we left in the middle of March. This diversion program has been amazing in addressing the suspendable issues rather than just sending students home for a mini vacation. Valerie Olston is still our college and career advisor for both sites, working mainly with seniors, but all students have access to her services. In math, Mrs. Seeley has been using a new math program to meet the diverse needs of our population. The program is IXL and allows for greater individualization in math instruction. We are continuing to use Ingenuity as our main platform for credit recovery. Just yesterday, both schools rolled out the Stop It app, making it easier for students to report incidents of bullying, harassment, and other inappropriate activities. Earlier this year, I had the opportunity to be our student voice and participated in the ad hoc committee, looking at ways we can engage students in co-curricular and extracurricular activities, still maintaining appropriate COVID protocols. One of my suggestions was to form a study skills group where students would be able to meet in a small cohort with a teacher for extra academic support, as well as earning elective credits. While this hasn't been able to happen yet, our staff has restructured our school schedule, adding a study skills class within the school day. This will help support students with their academic success, as well as provide an opportunity for students to make up elective credit. Other suggested activities include keeping in mind COVID restrictions protocols, in-person mental health counseling, continuance of our outdoor educational hikes, senior recognition activities, participation in athletic events with the comprehensive schools, and community barbecues for both schools. In Ms. Denon's class, students learned that the solar suitcases assembled last year have arrived in Kenya and are in the process of being installed in schools and villages. This year, in partnership with We Share Solar and PG&E, we have the opportunity to turn our student-built solar suitcases into emergency preparedness kits for the community of Petaluma to use in the event of wildfire, earthquakes, other natural disasters, or major power outages. Wow. These kits will be portable and will have the ability to charge essential devices and power light bulbs in use for any disaster relief efforts. Thank you, and thank you for supporting alternative education. And now Mr. Stevenson has a couple items to share.
Hi, I'm Greg Stevenson, the principal of Sonoma Mountain and Carpe Diem. This was kind of a late ad, so I'm jumping in on this. I just wanted to share some results of a survey that we gave our students towards the end of last semester, just to see what they were thinking and what they were feeling and what were their challenges and what did they actually like about this distance learning. But there were 65 students. We had 52 responses. These are a number of responses, not percentages, obviously, but what aspects of distance learning were most challenging for our students? They reported tech issues and Wi-Fi, but that was more than just the students. Even our teachers are still learning, some of the apps. I want to say, though, that our tech department at the district level has been amazing at response for hotspots, getting computers and Chromebooks out to students and everything else. And we've come a long way, but these are what they're feeling. Leaving their camera on was a challenge for them. Being uncomfortable asking questions, in front of the camera rather than next to their peers. Sharing work in front of others. It just seems different to our students than having the teacher come look at it. Not having pencil and paper assignments. They're available, but it's kind of hard to get to. I've delivered some to homes personally, but they like that. And the need for, this was awesome and special, the need for more one-on-one time with our teachers. You can't replace that with a camera. And the next, we have two more of these here. What do we have? Aspects that you actually enjoy. They like our block schedule and the shortened day. They like that part. Eating whenever I want to. So nobody's going to complain. We just want you on in class doing your work. Working from home in your own workspace. That's easy for them. Lack of dress code. I wanted to jump on this because it's not a free for all. Don't get them wrong. I think it's more of the slippers and pajamas. But we still do maintain a dress code, but it's easier for them and less distractions from peers. So it just depends who's in your class there. But one more that we asked, and I've got a couple quotes that I'd like to share with you. What about your personal life? What aspects of your personal life make it challenging? This is important for us. I think all students, continuation especially, but all students, lack of sleep and sleep issues are causing drama. At my house, 3 kids, they're going to bed later these days, but that's one that they're thing. Just stressed, depressed, and more anxious. Lack of workspace. So one, they like their own workspace, but when we have families doubled and tripled up, it makes it hard to work at home. Missing friends and social interactions, another thing we're working on with those suggestions we talked about. Staying in one place, not getting out, not having a break, not taking that daily walk. Family needs and responsibilities, including watching their younger siblings because parents are working. And then right there at the same as the sibling interruptions. It's hard to work when you were watching a kid or a sibling. So last piece here, and I'll let you read the responses yourselves, but how are you coping? In your own words, how has distance learning affected your anxiety, depression, and stress? I just grabbed 5 random quotes. You could take a look at what they're saying for a few seconds here.
Thank you for sharing this with us.
You got it. Absolutely. I have one more that I want to just give us about 3 or 4 seconds and we'll make it. But I just thought it was important that you knew what the kids were saying, what our students are saying, what they're going through. It's a small snapshot, but here's the things that we asked them, what has this taught you about what you need from school?
Wow.
So, in general, you don't know what you miss until you miss it. And, I think that myself, our students, our teachers would all love to get back, but I think that that'll happen when the time is right. And those are what our kids have to think, what they're thinking and what they have to say. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time and letting us join you here tonight.
Thank you for sharing that. That was very eye-opening.
Absolutely.
Okay, now we get to hear from Petaluma Adult School.
All right, I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Hi, Nancy.
All right, fantastic. And I know Ashley's going to share my slides. There they are. Perfect. All right. Petaluma Adult Schools really excited to be here to share our board report. Next slide. Some general information about our school. We're a program of Petaluma City Schools in place for 100 years. We are also one of the founding members of the Sonoma County Adult Education Consortium. The consortium is comprised of 6 different members, and we're one of 3 funded members. We're WASC accredited through June 2023. And fiscally, just super briefly, we are funded through 2 main funding streams separate from the general fund, a state grant, WIOA, and CAPE as well. Next slide. This is what it used to look like, right? We miss all of that so much, but we have, next slide, pivoted to online learning in March 2020 for all of our designated program areas. Adult secondary education, which includes high school diploma, high school equivalency, and adult basic education. You can see ESL. Parent education, we have 4 or 5 different programs that we support for parent education. Computers was paused for a little bit. We found another teacher, and then we are the LEA for Cal Regional Medical Apprenticeship Programs. And we've also paused our community education, which is a fee-based program for the community at this time. And we have pivoted to this by offering flexible class times, one-on-one support, device lending, and tech support for our students and our teachers. Next slide. Just a little bit of information about our attendance and some outcomes. We have 421 active students at this time. So these are people who are actively attending in one way or another. At the top of the slide, it's fall 18, spring, fall. And it's broken down by 3 of our program areas. I think the big takeaway from this is that for ESL, we've really dropped down to 120 students at this time. But you know, considering the difficulty of our English learning adults to be able to use technology and navigate Zoom and navigate life, things that are going on in their lives, we think that's pretty strong and pretty great. High school diploma has really grown. A lot of our high school diploma students have some time on their hands. So now is the time to contact Petaluma Adult School, and we'll help you complete your dream of getting a high school diploma or preparing for HiSET/GED. Parent education, who would think that you could do parent education class with mommy and me format on a Zoom? But our parent educators do it every week in 5 different programs. They have colorful backgrounds that they use. They get out the puppets, they have the book, and they are maintaining some strong enrollment in those programs. Then at the very bottom is just a snapshot of the number of high school diplomas and also high school equivalency passing 5 different subsets that you see for each of those different years. So for fall of 20, we had 29 graduates, and then we already have over 10 here in January, and we'll have many more by the time June rolls around. Next. All right, at this point, hopefully our Carla Lunabus is been promoted to being a panelist, and she's gonna speak for 2 minutes about Catherine Crotty, I meant to say. For the Family Resource Center, Catherine Crotty will speak for 2 minutes about the activities of our Family Resource Center.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. Carla and Anna and Vicki and I would first of all like to thank you all for your support of our programs, the Family Resource Center. We really believe that supporting family stability is the best way for us to support our students. So we're happy to be a part of that process. We have a wonderful small but mighty team. This year has really challenged us, and we've developed a lot of wonderful community partnerships. Next slide, please. As you can imagine, it's been a really challenging year for the community in so many different ways, and RFRC has served as a hub for the Cura project, which supported the Latinx community and others who are coping with COVID. So that means offering support for certifying financial assistance, as well as wraparound services, delivering food from the food bank to families who need to stay at home. Things like disinfecting wipes, hand sanitizer, gift card, diapers, all kinds of things that have been required for our families in need. Also, of course, COVID has brought with it a lot of challenges, mental health challenges for our families. We have a great new partnership with Humanidad Therapy Services, and we're going to be offering both one-on-one therapy through a grant from the Vintners Foundation and also group therapy. And that will be in Spanish, both of those. We have a wonderful partnership with Catholic Charities for CalFresh and Medi-Cal support. You know that if someone calls Human Services Department, they're on hold for up to 4 hours to apply for CalFresh. So we have a new relationship where we can give a warm handoff and our families get a call from Catholic Charities and they're able to get CalFresh and Medi-Cal expedited. We've continued our free legal consultations and immigration. That's been challenging with Zoom, and we've had fewer outcomes there, but we have continued to do that. Next slide, please. And we've also continued our referrals for healthcare, employment, unemployment, different kinds of food availability, and housing support. Our Friday food bank has gone from an average of 45 families prior to COVID to it's tripled to almost, well, between 125 and 150 families each week coming in. And as you can see in the slide, it's safe delivery, drive-through. So, so that's been safe and useful for our families. In addition, in partnership also with CPI, Child Parent Institute, and the Petaluma Mothers Club, we have a diaper bank on site. So lots of wonderful things happening, and we're very grateful to Nancy and Erica, Chris Thomas, Debbie and Lori for supporting us in so many ways. Thank you.
Amazing.
We also serve as a liaison between parents and schools. So that means Parent Square, and serving as a parent advocate if parents ask us for that. We have crisis assistance, of course, outside of COVID. Sonoma County's had fires, power shutoffs, all kinds of things. So we have general crisis assistance as well. Fun things like crafts and conversation where people get together, as you can see. Now we do that online. It's not quite the same as it was, but it's still a wonderful thing to be able to do. The healthy cooking classes at the moment are on hold. But that, when we do deliver those, we use food from the food bank to deliver instruction on nutrition and cooking, and financial literacy classes that we offer, and that's going to be growing more and more important as this crisis continues. So again, thank you so much for your support and your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, Carla Lunabus to speak a little bit about Avance, and I know all of us are being mindful about our 2-minute limit if we can hold to it. Carla?
I can do that. Good evening, my name is Carla Lunibus. I am the parent educator on Avance program. It's my honor to be here. It's my honor to work for Petaluma Outlet School. It's amazing to work over there. I'm going to talking about this great program. And this year we had a challenge to do by Zoom with families who had children under 3 years old. We had children who born while we are doing the class, and we had 24 families in this moment and 30 kids, and they really like to be in Zoom. I think that's Nancy said before. The kids are enjoyed to be with the teachers, making fun, singing, and change the routine of the day and in the Zoom. So it's working well for them, and it's working well for the babies. We were surprised at how the moms step by step was engaged in the class. And now we are coaching the moms to doing the activity with the children. Before we was doing the activity with the infant. Now the moms are doing that, and it's amazing to see that by Zoom. So we have different components in this program. We are still doing the parenting class by Zoom. We offer asynchronous class too for the parents who we had. Most of the parents are working, so sometimes they're not able to take the class, or they're taken by asynchronous. The parents are doing the toy making. We bring the supplies for them and the tutorials, and they are still doing that. We had. I think we can change the page. Nancy, we can change the next page or no?
Next slide, yes.
Next slide. So we had other components, the children, the class. So we divide the children in two classes, one for infants, one for toddlers. We start all together and everybody in the room. And we open this year more a schedule for parents who had been challenged to go inside in the class in the morning or in the afternoon. So they had more options for enjoy the class. Before we was doing home visit, that is a important component for us. And this year, what we are doing by Zoom is we doing a video call, or we are doing some video recording, and we working with the family, how they play with the children, and we do observations and encourage the families what they're doing well with this and having pros and skill. And the other component is important for us is the community resources. So we, with the partnership with the Family Resources Center, we are providing all the resources for the community. We know that this is a challenging year. So family who are exposed for COVID or illness or this unemployment, we was able to support them too. Other thing that we are working for this group of family is building community, and we create the WhatsApp group. And I think this is a very good instant for families to share for some issues with the children, be in contact with others, and making connection. I think that is, and we are proud that this year is working well.
Great. Thank you so much, Carla. I'm just going to address here, PPNS is our Parent Nursery School Co-op. Those classes are still going on via Zoom. Next slide. And other programs such as Pasitos and Primeros Pasitos. Next slide. English is a second language. We have Lane, and Lane will also try to keep it to 2 minutes if she can.
Hi, good evening. Thanks so much for having us tonight. I just wanted to highlight that our English as a second language program, although a bit smaller than it has been in the past, we are still able to offer classes on Zoom and provide a very personalized learning experience for our students. We have student-teacher conferences with all of our students twice a year. And during that time, they're able to share with us what their challenges are, both learning online, but also in their personal lives. And then the wonderful thing is, because of we have the Family Resource Center, we're able to refer those students directly to wraparound services. And so we really have this wonderful system at Petaluma Adult School where sometimes students will come in for parent ed classes, and then they find out about our ESL classes, and then they start taking English classes, and then they find out about our high school diploma classes, and they go on to finish their high school diploma or get their US citizenship. So just so many opportunities for students to improve their lives. I guess a challenge has been this year moving over to Zoom is that some of our adults actually attend class using their cell phones. They get on Zoom on cell phones, on tablets, on Chromebooks, and on computers. And the Zoom interface is different for each one of those. So our teachers have had to figure out how to help students attend class using 4 different modes, but we're doing it. And the silver linings have been things like we have more students attending our classes now who live in Santa Rosa because they can do it from home on Zoom. They don't have to commute. We have students who have babies and they're able to attend class 1 week later because they can do it from home. So, there are some great things about the flexibility of learning from home. So we continue to offer our beginner and intermediate level English. This year, we started offering conversation and pronunciation classes in the afternoon in a partnership with Parmatech, which is a local employer. They approached us. They were willing to give their employees time off at work to take classes. So we created a set of classes that would work for them. And of course, we continue to have our US citizenship preparation courses. And I teach that class, and I partner with the government teacher at Casa Grande High School. And she sends me high school seniors who want to volunteer in the class, and they can earn their volunteer hours that way. So that's a really exciting partnership. Next slide. We continue to follow all of the COVID protocols. We now do registration by appointment only. It used to be a drop-in process, but now it's all done by appointment. And we are lending out Chromebooks this year, which has been super helpful for some of those students who were Zooming in on their phones. Now they're able to get Chromebooks and do that. So that has really improved the instructional experience for them. So thank you so much for your time. And next slide, please.
All right, Amy Jasa is our program manager for adult secondary. Amy?
Hi, good evening. So this semester and into last semester has just shown how resilient our students are. Never ceases to amaze me. So we have an awesome team of teachers and administrators, and our students are rising to the occasion. For some of our students, this remote style of learning is working. For some of them, even a little bit better. A funny note was, as you can see our graduation picture there, we did a drive-up celebration where each student got porch dropped their cap and gown, and then, got to get out and do a picture. And I was talking to some of our students about graduation this year, and how we might not be in the gym, and so many of them were just like, oh, I love the idea of a drive-up graduation, because for so many of our students, that anxiety and that fear of being in front of so many people in the center of attention was just, but this drive-up celebration for them, they found that silver lining. So this year, we just, like Nancy was saying, we've already had over 10 graduates from just the winter break to now. So I really feel like we're kind of at this bubble. So we were spending so much time figuring out the Zoom classes and how to connect and stay looped in with the teachers and the works. We use predominantly Odysseyware for that. And with all those bits, now we're kind of getting it dialed in, and we're really starting to see students, meeting the occasion and graduating and taking their equivalency, which is awesome. So we definitely have multiple times a day students can take classes and check in with teachers. It's much more of a case management system for high school diploma and high school equivalency now, since we're not in the classroom. So it's lots of phone calls and text messages, and Remind is my savior. And then just pulling students together and continually, bugging them to see where they are and what support they need. I always tell them I'm pretty much fair game as a mom from about 8 in the morning to 9:30 at night. So it never fails. 9:30 at night, I'll usually have some questions about testing or whatnot. Next slide. So some of this we already, the Remind accounts, we did do a lot of porch drops for our students who need packets instead of online lessons. And so lots of porch drops happened, variety of class times, learning plans, and then you can just kind of see a sample of our class schedule. But yeah, it's been a lot for our students, but I'm just happy to say that they are still, rising to the occasion and graduating and earning those diplomas. And already out of the 10 and a half we have so far, because one's trying to get through tonight, we had 4 of them join Cal Regional and join their different programs that we partner with for them for that. So it's awesome to see them already have that next spot in their life. All right, thank you.
And our last slide, what's next? So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our stories about what we've been doing in Petaluma Adult School. We will just continue to support our teachers and our students and our district until we move on to the next step with what's in front of us with coronavirus and access to in-person classes. Thank you very much to the board, the superintendent, cabinet, and the community, school community, for the support that we receive for adult education.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, we are on to facilities update with Ms. Chris Thomas.
Okay, good evening. I've only got about 100 slides, so it shouldn't take more than an hour and a half to get through this. So we have been super busy over the past several months trying to make lemonade out of the lemons we've received over the past several months by getting into our school sites and actually doing a lot of work. So I'm going to share my screen here. So let me do my slideshow. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm going to start with Pengrove Elementary School. So we continue to work on the basement at Pengrove. It probably sounds like deja vu because we keep talking about the basement, but we've done a significant amount of work. We've installed a nice area for the YMCA. We've installed an ADA accessible restroom. We're in the process of installing HVAC heating and ventilation and ductwork so that we can actually not only heat it and ventilate it, but also the air from a HVAC dries it out. We currently have dehumidifiers running in that basement. We pull a significant amount of water out of the air just because of the nature of the basement having a concrete wall at the back with soil on the other side. And so we're hoping to get, it's in design right now, and we're hoping to get that done in the next few months. And then once we have the HVAC in, then we're going to start working on relocating the library into the basement, putting in new flooring, finishing the walls. We've already got ADA accessible ramps into the basement, doing some upgrades to lighting and some other finishes, putting in some walls and some sheetrock and paint, etc. So, but that has to come after we finish the HVAC and ductwork. Reconfiguration of the lower parking lot design. I'm sure that over the years you've heard about Pengrove's parking lot and some of the challenges with Pengrove parking lot. So that's currently in design. I'm waiting to hear from the architects to see when that's going to get DSA approval so that we can move forward with that project, hopefully this summer. That's the goal. And then a new ADA accessible ramp, ADA being Americans with Disability Act, not average daily attendance. So we're looking at a new ADA accessible ramp going from the basement. And if you're familiar with Pengrove, you know that's a steep climb from the basement up to the office. And so we want to put in a ramp that's going to create an accessible way to get from that basement up to the office. That's also in design. And we hope to do that in conjunction with the lower parking lot reconfiguration project. And then the student restroom repairs. There are a couple of restrooms at Pengrove that are in need of repair and renovation. That's also in design. It's kind of fallen to the bottom because we've been focusing on renovating the basement and really expanding because we've added 2 classrooms at Pengrove. We've gone from 17 classrooms a few years ago to 19 classrooms. And so that's kind of refocused our priority. Mary Collins at Cherry Valley, we completed a roofing repair for the Laurel building and the admin building in conjunction with an HVAC and ductwork replacement. So the ductwork that was on both of those buildings was in complete disrepair. There was major gaps and holes in the ductwork, and it was allowing a lot of water into the systems. That was all replaced this past summer. We still are in design for the kitchen reconfiguration and modernization. We haven't been able to quite get to that project yet, but it is still on our list of projects to complete. And then re-roofing of the childcare portable building, that's most recently come up. You're going to see throughout these slides a lot of roofing and a lot of HVAC, because really the first place you want to start before you start doing interior work is you want to make sure your roofs are solid, secure, and that your mechanical systems, which are part of, in many respects, the roofing system, are also. The other thing about HVAC, just again to keep in mind as we're going through this, a lot of our units are were installed in the 1990s. Right now, most of the units we're in the process of replacing are circa 1994, 1995, 1993. Some of them, like on the Cherry Valley portable building we replaced over the summer, it's not on here, it was about 30 years old. So when you think about these aging units, think about the ongoing operational costs for a very non-energy efficient unit that's taking up a lot more energy. So we're hoping to actually create ongoing operational savings for the general fund by replacing these older units and being more environmentally friendly as well. So anyway, you'll see that kind of as we go through. The childcare portable building is in the process of being assessed for a new roof, because honestly, it just came on our radar that it's continued to have some significant leaks. McKinley, we installed 2 classroom portables over the summer. You probably are aware of that. Re-roofing and repair to the lower breezeways and the kitchen roof. Those were in disrepair. The kitchen roof had some serious water damage from leaking. We also are looking at their HVAC units that's currently designed. We completed the exterior paint. So as you know, a few years ago, we painted the front of the campus. And so we completed that work actually over the fall. So it wasn't a summer project, it was a fall project, and we were able to do that. Our teachers were super flexible, and we're grateful that they allowed us to kind of get in. And if you can imagine, to paint, we have to tape all their windows closed, you know, to cover them and protect them. But the school is really looking great. We also want to evaluate the play structures on this campus. They're super old. Working with the school site, we've been talking about it for a year or 2 now, and we want to start kind of moving that up on the priority list. And then also renovation of the multi-purpose and kitchen with new flooring, lighting, window coverings, interior paint. We were hoping for this summer, but again, with all the roofing work that's come to the top, it's probably looking at summer of 22. When we get to Valley Vista, think about the Valley Vista renovation. For any of you that have seen that, we'd like to kind of apply that concept to others of our elementary school multi-purpose rooms. Grant, you know, we successfully removed that rubber track surface over the summer. It was really done primarily in June after school got out. And then we also unexpectedly had to do some roofing repairs and interior repairs for classrooms 4, 5, and 6, because what we found is that there was some significant water damage up inside those where the classrooms are connected. Those are modular classrooms that are connected together. And at the connection points, the design really allowed for way too much water intrusion for those buildings. So we were able to, and to an extent that one of the structural beams inside the roof in classroom 5 actually had been eaten away. It had so much water damage for so long that the structural beam had rusted, and we actually had to do some structural repairs to that beam before we re-roofed it. So that we got all back up and going. I would just do a shout out to those 3 teachers who really were amazingly flexible and patient as we worked through that construction project, because it really wasn't on our radar, and they were definitely impacted, and they were really terrific. So I just kudos to them. McNair Elementary, we did a re-roofing repair and replacement of lower roofs for the admin building. So all of the breezeways, basically the lower roofs, we re-roofed, and not just the breezeways, but they kind of cover the breezeway and the lower sections of the classrooms. We did carpet replacement on approximately 10 classrooms over the summer. And again, we're looking at their HVAC unit replacements as well. And then they are another multi that we want to get in and renovate. This one is a little bit more complicated because as we looked at their multi, neither of the 2 restrooms that are in that multi are ADA accessible. And therefore, we actually have to get in and renovate all of the restrooms at the same time we do the paint and the flooring and all of that. And we either will have to bump the building out slightly or take away from the kitchen. So this is a more complicated project when we looked at it, but we are hoping to do this as summer 22 as well as McKinley's. Valley Vista, we've done a significant amount of work at Valley Vista. We renovated the multi in the kitchen. We talked about that. If you haven't had a chance to go in and see how beautiful that multi-purpose is, please try to find an opportunity to do that. We're super proud of how it came out. Pocket tables were replaced. We converted classroom 5 into a K6 music room. They were relocated from the transportation yard over. In June, I made the mistake of going into the childcare building. And I was a little bit horrified. I had not been in that building. And it was really clear to me that that building needed to be demolished. So we immediately went into design work to replace the building and demolish the existing building. That has all been accomplished. We're getting ready to be able to move them back in. In conjunction with that, we also had to, because again, when you go into DSA, they will come in and say, okay, you're going to replace the childcare building, but we also want to look at all of the restrooms. Are the restrooms ADA accessible? We want to look at the ramp and the walkways. And so we actually had to put in a brand new concrete ramp from the multi up to that upper wing, and then beyond that to the childcare building. So brand new ramp and walkway, brand new concrete work where there was a lot of cracked and broken concrete. We were able to come in and we added about 5 trees. So we actually planted trees. We left a planting space. We ran sleeves for irrigation, and we planted 5 trees in front of the deck for the childcare, which is now an asphalt deck, not a wooden deck, which it used to be. And that's going to create shade, natural shade for those students when they go out there. So if they're going to eat lunch or whatever they're going to do, it's kind of a nice natural way to create some shade. And then we also demolished, there was 2 sheds on that site. We demolished them, and we have a brand new shed that we're purchasing and we're going to put back near that childcare building. So it actually freed up and is providing much more space for the students out on that blacktop, which leads into asphalt overlay. So we actually replaced or did an asphalt overlay of the lower blacktop. That's the one on the southernmost part of the school. And then once we were finished with the childcare building as part of the same project, we've now just done an asphalt overlay for the upper one as well. Rebuilt the ball walls on both of them, restriped it, looks amazing. And we also completely replaced the asphalt in the kinder play yard. So if anybody's been out in that kinder play yard, that asphalt was in terrible shape. We restriped it, and we added trees there too. So we added trees along the southern part of the kinder play yard, the asphalt part of the play yard, so that again, we're creating natural shade for those students as they're playing on the blacktop. And then window replacement, we also hope to do in the next year or so. So Kenilworth Junior High School, we completed a project over the summer, new HVAC units and ductwork and buildings C and D in the gymnasium locker rooms. We've done a review of the existing solar system. They are having, and this was a solar system, the school was built in approximately 2003. The solar system was installed a couple years later. It was not installed as part of the construction, went in about 2005. And that was a very unique technology at that time, where they had adhesive panels that they rolled out on a metal roof. So you can imagine adhesive panels rolled out on a metal roof. 15 years later, the adhesive has been delaminating and water's been getting under the solar panels. So you can imagine what's happening when you have electrical currents, metal, and water in between. This little thing called electrolysis, I believe is the correct word, is creating significant damage. We believe, we don't know for sure because we haven't been able to lift up the solar panels on that roof in the form of rust. And so we're working with that solar system's owned by a PPA. And so we're working with them to assess the solar system and figure out how to get those roofs repaired. We're moving on, or we've been in design for new HVAC systems in buildings J and G at Kenilworth. So that's going to be the next phase. So for those of you who know Kenilworth, it's got very uniquely designed buildings. Most of the buildings are different shapes, different designs, completely different mechanical systems that support those buildings. So we're focusing on there's 3 square buildings with 4 classrooms. One of them, a split system was already put into. So AC was actually added onto these wall units. The other 2, nothing had happened. So we're focusing on those other 2 because we need to be able to quickly design those, get that approved by DSA, and get in and try to do that work this summer. And those 2 buildings are very similar in construction design. So I've been working with the architects and engineers, and we think we have a good design for that project. And then our hope would be we'd go into design as soon as that one's under construction for summer 22 to take up the rest of the campus, or to pick up the rest of the campus as we continue working at replacing those systems. That's Kenilworth. Petaluma Junior High, roofing and repairs to most of the breezeways. We completed that this summer. We did, as one of the students mentioned in the, we applied similar colors that we did at Petaluma High School to Petaluma Junior High. We did incorporate some gold doors because they have gold in their color scheme, where Petaluma High is purple and white, purple and gold for Petaluma Junior High and the Bantams. So we've done the multi-building C, the admin building, the front breezeways, the breezeways that go behind the multi and the main entryway. And we are hoping to then go into, weather dependent, this spring, pick up the rest of the campus. But it looks fantastic. I think it just is very clean. I walk that campus a lot with my dogs, and I've heard some of the neighbors around it that are super excited about the colors. So we're just thrilled that project's really coming together. And the last thing I'll add on that is that the school site and the district are working with Maxfield Bala, and he is currently having conversations to do a mural on the very front of that campus, that entire breezeway. We're going to put up 4 12-foot panels, because if you think about that breezeway, it's sectioned every 4 feet it's got, or every 3 feet it's got a weird trim to it, which from a mural perspective is challenging. So Maxfield is working with Kelly Chris and her team to review design concepts. And so we're hoping by this summer, he's going to be out there painting an amazing mural at the very front of that campus. So we're super excited about that. Let's see, re-roofing and siding repairs. There's a lower classroom portable adjacent to the locker rooms, and we are in-house redoing all of the siding. We have an amazing maintenance crew. I'm just so proud of our maintenance department. Honestly, they're doing amazing work. So they're actually taking care of the siding repairs, as portable siding was in very bad shape. We're having the portable re-roofed. We're also, there's the path that goes from the lower fields. I'm sure many of you have walked it. I walk it all the time. It is completely, it's completely disintegrating. It's not just alligatoring, but I think with the slide we had and the rain, it kind of shifted that hillside. And so the pavement, the asphalt's crumbling away. So we're actually coming in, the work is starting actually this week. Contractor's coming in, he's going to build some small retaining walls. He's going to grind down all that asphalt and put in new asphalt so that that path will now be safe for not only our students, but that path is used a lot by our community as well. So we're excited about that. We have unfortunately had to remove about 15 trees at Petaluma Junior High, most of which were redwoods that have died. So we were put on notice by the city, but we'd also been working on them. The climate change, lack of fog, and the drought, I think are just really, really impacting our trees in Petaluma. So that's been a sad thing. And then we're looking at sealing and restriping the blacktop at a certain point. Casa Grande, have you seen the new marquee? There's a new marquee on Eli. So it's not quite as big as I think they originally wanted, but I think it looks great. We're looking at the OMU exterior plaza improvements. That's currently in DSA. Exterior paint, I'm working with the color committee to try to pick new colors for Casa, maybe with more of a gold and green theme. And we're looking at the final ADA path in the Olay Garden. And of course, we're evaluating HVAC and roofing replacement. The admin building in particular is in desperate need. Carpe Diem, we did some LED exterior lighting upgrades, and we're looking at some exterior improvements to the landscape. Petaluma High School, we installed a significant number of LED lights, replaced them. That's going to be way more cost effective. We did the final paint of the exterior gymnasium complex. We've done about 75% of the signage. There's a little bit more on order. New sidewalk on English and Broadway is in progress. If you've seen that, it includes new fencing for the tennis courts along English. And we're currently working to determine if we have to remove a couple of trees and what new planting we would do in that area. So we're working with our city partners and our neighborhood partners on that project. Exterior painting for the remaining science and art wings. Those two-story buildings are now the next in line to get painted. Re-roofing of the breezeways adjacent to the gym is in process, and looking at re-roofing the admin building and the main entryway breezeways. Okay, district-wide, this is the last slide, so I'm just about done. For those of you who are starting to snooze, I'm sorry, I get excited about facilities. We're looking, we've done the dark fiber, thank goodness, and kudos to David Fischera for the work that he did on this project, because this really helps support our distance learning. We are currently working with our Terra Verde partners on design and installation of microgrid or battery backup systems for 5 or 6 of our school sites, or 5 or 6 of our sites. So Casa Grande, Petaluma High, Petaluma Junior High, Kenilworth, McKinley, the district office, and the warehouse transportation. We actually just also started looking at McDowell because there's interest on PG&E's part for us to consider McDowell and maybe grant funding for that as well. We are applying for California's Self-Generation Incentive Program money, or lovingly known as CGIP money. That would pay for roughly 1/3 of the cost of this. And then we would use capital facilities funds, including bond funds. Bond funds would only be used for the school site, other types of capital facilities funds for the district office and warehouse transportation. You might say, why the district office? Why warehouse transportation? The district office, remember, is our main data center. And so if power goes down, which we just experienced about 8 days ago, we lost power for a significant number of hours. Kenilworth still had power, for example, but all of their data and internet was down because we were down. And so having some sort of backup system so that we can keep our main data center up is critical for all of our school sites. And so, and then transportation, remember, we have large refrigeration units at the transportation yard. And also think about the fueling center. If we were in a true crisis, we provide fuel for the city and for our school buses. So for all of the red fleet, we want to have a way to be able to keep our warehouse and our fueling center up and going. More to come on that. There's an item on the agenda, and that relates to basically this project and moving forward with a request for proposal and qualifications for firms to basically propose or provide us with a proposal to start moving forward, not only on the design, but also assisting the district with this SGIP application program. This SGIP money is quickly running out. So it's really, we're working really hard to try to get in that application in February so that we can get ourselves in line for that funding. It represents about $1.3 million for us. So this is about a $4.2 million project. So if we can get 1.3 of that funded through the SGIP program, that's a really good thing. And then the preschool building on the corner of Maria and McDowell. You know, we have a preschool grant that we were awarded for integration of working with our partner 4Cs and working with South County Consortium so that we can operate a fully integrated preschool program. And so we are in design for that. We're working with our architects and engineers. But our maintenance guys, we have a team of guys over there actually starting some of the work so we can get a head start on it. They're doing a bunch of siding repairs. We've been removing debris, etc. So we're super excited about that. And then the district office, we've been doing some exterior window and water damage repair. Our windows at the back corner on the back side had significant water damage. They actually, our bricks, the water was getting in, and our bricks actually were, they were disintegrating from the inside out. So if you looked at the bricks from the exterior, they looked okay, except for these large cracks. But if you actually knocked on the bricks, you could tell some of them were becoming hollow. And so right now we have a waterproofing company coming in, doing repairs, replacing all of the seals around the windows. And of course, the more we looked, the more it's like every exposed window and door that we have. The door at the back, actually it's got wood trim around it, and the wood trim was completely rotted out. So anyway, that's some of the work that we're doing here at the district office, is to address some pretty significant damage that needed to be addressed. And that's it.
Thank
Any
you.
Questions?
Yeah, Chris, I wanted to ask on the battery energy storage systems.
Yes.
I just want to confirm that they're associated with our solar panels.
At the 5 school sites that I referenced, yes, but they're not associated at the district office because we don't have solar.
And then what about And then how is that going to work with Kenilworth if their existing system is, likely to be replaced? Is that right?
So we're kind of doing the two things in conjunction with each other. It does not have to have solar to have a battery backup system.
Right, right.
So just like the district office and transportation. But the goal is seriously to either figure out, how do we remove the majority of the existing solar? Because you're going to have to remove them in order to repair the roofs. And then what do we put back? Do we put back a whole different system? We're not going to put the old solar panels back on the roof. I've already had that conversation with our PPA partners. So the question is, do they propose a new PPA with a new solar system? Do we go a different route? So those conversations are happening. The primary focus right now is repairing the roof, is removing what we need to remove in order to assess and repair the roofs. But the goal ultimately would be to replace the solar system, whether it's under a PPA, power purchase agreement, or whether we do it bond funded like we did before on the other school sites. That's the question. But we would hope to have solar feeding those battery backup systems. May not happen right away. So good question though.
And I've got other questions, especially with the report that we got from our consultant. Do you want them now, or should we wait till the action item?
That's fine.
Later?
That would be fine. It's up to you.
What do you think, Ellen?
Why don't we wait till we get to the action item?
Okay.
Because I have a few questions too, but I'm going to save them until we get there.
So hopefully you can see from the report we've been busy. These are just the highlights. There's many other smaller things that we've been working on, but again, I just want to give a shout out to our maintenance and operations crews, custodial. They're really doing a great job working on our buildings as well. I've just highlighted some of the stuff we're doing.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, we are on to comments from the public. I would like to read something. Under Government Code Section 54954, members of the public have the right to address the governing board on any items of interest, providing it relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the school district. While Government Code allows speakers to criticize the district's policies, procedures, programs, services, and/or employees, the district does have a policy specific to complaints against employees. Should comments from the public pertain to a specific district employee, the board requests that the complaint first be submitted in writing to the employee's immediate supervisor for investigation. If the comment is about something that is not on the agenda, it will only be heard during the public comment on non-agendized items, period. Once that part of the meeting is over, comments will only be taken on agenda items. And I just wanted to make a comment about comments on the agenda items. Before the consent agenda, before our action items, and before the discussion items, the chat will be open. So if you wish to participate or you have comments on those subjects, you'll have the opportunity to do that as we go through the agenda. The board values public comments, and although we cannot take action or discuss items not on the agenda, we listen carefully and appreciate input from the public, and we take notes, or I do anyway. Public comments are subject to a 4-minute per person limit or a 20-minute limit per subject matter. And the chat will be open for about 2 minutes. And please, if you have comments, please include your full name and your topic. So Gary, the chat's open.
Yeah, we'll open up the chat for items that are not on the agenda. We'll close it in a minute or so. Give folks time to. Again, like board president mentioned, if it's related to future items, there'll be an opportunity for you to put your to jump in. If folks go into because of the number and the time element, if folks are putting into the chat and it's an item that's related to the agenda, we're just gonna let's read them right now. We'll assume this is when they want it read.
Okay.
We don't have the ability to go back and forth on these.
Yeah, we have leave it open another few seconds. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so we will start with, let's see, Peter Costas. SCO updates. Peter?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Just a couple of things. It was just, the student presentations were just so heartwarming to hear. I mean, just seeing students was just wonderful, and seeing them engaged. And then the student survey from Sonoma Mountain, it just really brings home the struggle a lot of our students are having, and it was really important to hear all that. So those student presentations were really important to hear. And just, I just want to congratulate trustees Webster and Jen for the reelection. Good for you. The board stays strong. And again, I just want to acknowledge the whole board and superintendent, his cabinet, all your certificated teachers, classified staff, just, during these hard times, just doing whatever you can do to keep students, connected and engaged in school. It's hard, and it's important. We can't give up. And I'm sure you're dealing with pressure of open schools, closed schools, open schools, closed schools. And, that's gotta be hard too. And, hopefully we'll all get vaccinated soon, and, we'll be back in business at school. And just a couple other things. As you probably know, on our school calendar, there's upcoming workshops for trustees throughout the county. On January 19th, Capital Advisors will be going through the governor's January budget. On January 26th, there'll be a Brown Act training, which might be interesting because it might have something to do with Zoom Brown Act training. On February 1st, unfortunately, we're having our biennial trustee recognition, and it's always been a really nice dinner at John Ash up in Windsor, but I don't know, we'll be doing it on Zoom, so I don't know what that's going to look like. We're going to have a really good speaker on educational equity, Dr. Rios. And then on February 26th, FICMAT's going to do a board member boot camp. So those are all on your on the school website. They're all free. All you got to do is register to get the Zoom link. And again, I just want to thank you all for all the work you're doing.
Thank you,
That's
Peter.
it for me.
Thank you, Peter.
You're welcome.
Okay, Sal Andropoulos, student codes of conduct, specifically off campus.
Yes. Yeah, Sal Andropoulos, they them pronouns with Petaluma Tide and North Bay LGBTQI families. I just wanted to first quickly start by just saying congratulations to trustees Pawn and Jen on their nominations as board officers. I just really appreciate both of you for the work you've been doing, and it's really exciting to have trustee Pawn leading the board during this critical time in our community, and just really want to thank her for being willing to serve in that role. And many of us in the community are looking forward to supporting her and her work as president. And also the board member comments at the beginning of the meeting were great to hear. And if the board wants to do those regularly, that'd be awesome. So just I had a few brief comments to submit, both in response to recent reports of harassment and intimidation of community members and families involving students, as well as in response to recent national events. So with regard to the reports of community harassment, including racial harassment by students, which I think the board and some administrators are aware of, PCS secondary schools, I think, need to change their student and athletic team codes of conduct to extend to off-campus conduct, particularly as it relates to engaging in harassment, intimidation, bullying, and hate speech. And secondary schools should also not only require anti-bias education and training for students who have engaged in this sort of conduct, but also share with the community what that training consists of, as well as who will be providing it. And in terms of the off-campus conduct being, like, I think that there is precedent, I think, especially for student athletes in terms of the conduct off campus having consequences. For example, things like drinking. I think, athletes might have, consequences for that, and that's an off campus thing. So I think there is precedent for having that be part of the codes of conduct. Secondly, PCS has a number of trainings and things coming up related to discrimination and harassment, such as the online trainings that are proposed to take place this semester in the Circle Up process. And I just it's great to see that those are kind of moving forward, and just wanted to encourage and just urge the board and the district to in those trainings directly address the role of white supremacy ideologies in fueling hate speech, discrimination, and threats of violence in our community, and making sure that that is named, and that's part of the training. And you can look at civil rights groups like Southern Poverty Law Center and others have a lot of information and definitions on their websites, if people need resources or any information about that. And just lastly, reiterating a comment I submitted in November, sort of right after the election, just wanted to ask PCS to share with the community what the district's specific plans are to keep BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and other marginalized students safe in light of recent national developments, and how similar safety risks may be reflected in our local community. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, you didn't put your topic.
Hi there. Thank you so much. I didn't put a topic because there's a couple different things I want to talk about. First of all, congratulations to Trustee Webster and Jen for their re-election, and most positive, amazing, wonderful, woot woot, heck yeah, awesome Joanna Pond as president of the board for Petaluma City Schools. This is an unprecedented and groundbreaking appointment. And in these times, it could not be more well put. And so kudos to all of you for nominating, for voting unanimously, for working so hard in these times to do this work. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I am so stoked on that. I cannot wait to work with you all, continue to work with you all. On behalf of TIDE, Team for Inclusivity, Diversity, and Equity, we would like to lift and appreciate all of our goals to reimagine our schooling system to become truly a trauma-informed and care-based community system. We thank you for bringing forth Trustee Pond as a committee to address the discrimination and harassment, and giving us an update and centering student and family voices and stakeholder voices for that. We very much appreciate the work that you are doing. We specifically would like to hear about how PCS will be addressing or discuss how they will be addressing recent online and real life harassment of students and families, both on and off campus, in regards to things as small as backgrounds that are in students' flags and posters and backgrounds in students' bedrooms, and how we can address that with perhaps, I don't know, backgrounds that are, PCS backgrounds that everybody could have, so that we do not see into people's homes. And that would address certain equity issues, as well as political affiliations and uprisings that may become back and forth within students and families politically in these times. So that was just one thought about that. I also echo Sal Andropoulos in the idea of discussing and reimagining and looking at our codes of conduct for not just our athletes, but all students. And how are we raising our families and our students to be just and stewards of our community and stewards of one another, to take care of each other in mutual care and trauma-informed care. So again, congratulations, most amazing, wonderful trustees, Joanna Pond, woo woo! Thank you very much. You are all amazing.
Thank you, Sarah. Phoebe Ellis, educator classified staff vaccination update and COVID coordinator job description. Phoebe?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Happy New Year. Thank you all for being there. Just a couple quick questions. Hope I did hear something on the radio coming out of SCO. I was hoping Peter Costas was going to speak to it, that potentially educators in Sonoma County would be looking at getting vaccinated in the upcoming month to 6 weeks. I do serve on the Petaluma Health Center board, and I know they are working diligently to get many folks in our community vaccinated. I am pushing for educators, classified staff to be considered, somehow get in a priority phase. I know Narit, who is the chief medical officer there as well, is helping with that effort. Hoping as soon as we can get people vaccinated, we can consider getting students back on campuses when allowed. It is, ongoing concern what is going on in people's homes, as of all these previous speakers have mentioned, all of this online Zoom opportunities for bullying, harassment, much of it just can't be handled, when you aren't in contact with a person or an administrator or a teacher or a staff to be held accountable. So I just continue to fear that it's going to just continue unless we can get some in-person contact. And I am happy to see that later on in the meeting, there is a cohort update, which I'm very interested in hearing about, because this board has been talking about it since October. And I am curious why we still do not have cohorts in person on campuses. It has been allowed since August of 2020. Cohorts have been allowed. So I'm hoping that that is going to be happening sooner than later.
Phoebe, we have cohorts on at every single elementary school and secondary.
I understand that, Trustee Webster. Are there students with disabilities are on campuses and their social emotional cohorts? The girl that spoke from the alternative high school spoke about a study skills cohort that she said was not allowed. So those are the kind of cohorts that I am speaking to. I understand that there are distance learning cohorts going on. And that brings me to my final question. I feel like the public and we all deserve an update on negotiations. What years are you negotiating for contracts? I understand that it's confidential, the terms, but the public could be included in knowing what contracts are you discussing right now with classified and teachers? Is it the 1920 school year? Is it the 2021 school year? And are there any discussions, or is there an MOU around getting teachers and staff back into classrooms? And my third point is the COVID coordinator job description. I understand, I saw that's in the employment report that someone's been hired and they're being paid quite a bit of money. So I'm hoping that their job description will be shared with the public, their parents, students, how we can access this person. Thank you.
Thank you, Phoebe. And Sheila. No last name.
Hi, my name is Sheila Morrissey. I just want to say that mine's going to be short, because I want to say I agree with Sal and Sarah's comments. They're both very eloquent. I want to add my congratulations to Sheldon and Joanna. And I also want to add that I would like to hear a statement of support for the BLM movement and in condemnation of white supremacy from the district. I would like to see that sent out to all the families in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. And that ends the comments from the public. Reported activities and correspondence of school board members.
I think we have one more.
We do? I didn't see it.
I think we have Patricia Brown. Am I missing?
I didn't see her at all.
I see Patricia Brown as well.
Right down, PHS Life Skills Program through SOCC.
Sorry about that. I missed that. Sorry, Patty, go ahead.
Now I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you. I do appreciate
the patience and the board this evening. There's a lot of exciting things. Congratulations to Ellen and Sheldon, and congratulations, Joanna. It's a wonderful thing. Change is good, and we love the new year. Everybody out here, I think all the teachers are excited about the new year, as I'm sure all of you are. Appreciate Chris. Wonderful things being done. I've been working at Petaluma High since March. I've just gone to school every day, and my classroom is empty. But I love to see all the wonderful things that have been done around the campus and around town at the junior high and Kenilworth, Casa Grande. Beautiful things are being done, and I do hope that the public notices these things and appreciates that things are being done all the while we're Zooming from home each day. I'm just speaking as a special education teacher, a special day class teacher. There's a special education committee that we've been meeting, and we will be meeting for this month. And the discussion has been, and this would another connection for Ms. Ellis was discussing a minute ago, the cohort discussion about a special day class look that would be cohorts with perhaps special day classes of students that were more moderate to severe. Their needs are significant, and in many cases, some of our students are not doing as well as students in some of the general ed and some of the other resource programs. Some teachers have reported that students are doing well during distance learning, and it's exciting to hear. It's a little discouraging for someone like myself after 27 years to have some of your final years in education not be as exciting, because it is difficult to watch a nonverbal student with a nonverbal learning disability stare at you for 2 hours a day, and you're trying to, pursue all of these things that you want to share with them. And education is difficult for that kind of a student because they cannot respond verbally. And a thumbs up and thumbs down, things like that, some sign language here and there, but it is difficult. And so I just wanted to share again, I am not one of the ones that's thrilled about being home distance learning. Yet some teachers are thrilled. I've spoken to special ed teachers who've said they've had successes. Some students with anxiety and emotional and behavioral difficulties, they've done well. Some of them have done really, really well with these venues, Zooming and from home. I just wanted to say that I feel like the vaccine, I did hear that about Sonoma County Office of Education saying that perhaps within the next 6 weeks, teachers would have vaccines, teachers that are willing to have the vaccine and re-enter the classroom at some time this year, we would hope. Just would like to say that I do see that equity is an issue. Equity is a big discussion in these board meetings, and equity for special education is also an issue that needs to be discussed. The more severe students that are struggling out there, this is not a great year for them, and this since March, 11 months almost. Some of them haven't done as well, and some of us haven't seen the progress we would like to see. So again, just restating that it would be very difficult. I understand some of us have 7 or 8 therapists that enter our room, come to our classes, crossing over 3 or 4 classes. I think the consortium has up to 20 classes now all over the town. And those therapists, have right concerns that they would have to cross over. So having these small cohorts, it's a great idea in theory, but I want equity as well. And I've done this a long time. And I think I have the right to say as a teacher that I don't feel that it would be fair for me to be going into the classroom with some more severe or moderately disabled students, all the PPEs and completely protected. And I'm willing to do all of that. But I do say that we do need to look at equity as far as that is concerned too. And so I don't want to go back in the classroom if a teacher's staying home and saying, I'm not going to go to school. I'm not going to be going to school. And so I think that we do need to have some kind of timeline, and we do need to see, and I'm hoping our special ed more severe committee will be coming up with some timelines. And, this is the 70th meeting, I think some of us have been in since March. 70. That's many levels and areas and all sorts of discussions, but the same thing seems to keep coming up. And it is, we'd like to have a timeline, and I understand until this COVID thing is gone, we may be discussing it again next year. But I think it's just needs to be said that people are working hard on it behind the scenes. Wonderful things are being done at the schools. The buildings and facilities look great. But the equity for teachers also needs to be thought of. And I know that as a special day class teacher, it grieves me that my students may not have as much of the success that some of the other students have out there. And that's sort of the way it goes. But we need to be really looking at timelines and finding out when we can have a vaccine for some of us, just for the well-being and, you know, making you feel a little bit better about going back in the classroom if that's a possibility. And I thank you this evening for your time. And I do like to say that I appreciate the teachers out there that have been fighting through mud this year to do the impossible. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay. I double checked the chat and we're good. So report on activities and correspondence of school board members. Casa Grande High School Success 101 interviews. I think most of us were on that. Casa Grande High School band concert, Zoom. San Antonio High School awards, SCO 5-year strategic plan meeting, budget advisory, Circle Up training, Christmas cheer volunteer, charter school discussions, PFT, discussions with PFT, governor's budget workshop, and a Valley Vista site visit. Okay, so we are on to the consent agenda. Gary, should I open up the chat again?
Yeah, we'll open it up for a minute on the consent agenda items. And if you have something you would like to speak to, please, again, provide your name and provide the specific item or item number that you would like to speak to. Typically, consent items are perfunctory pieces.
I see Sandra Larson.
Yeah, Sandra, we got you down for when we get to that item.
Yes, it's not, there aren't cohorts on the consent agenda, correct? No, there aren't. So that will be during our discussion, I believe.
Yes, so no items. We'll close that down.
Okay. Right, so consent agenda, do I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
A second.
Okay, I have one question. On the approval of service client agreement between Vector Solutions, when I was reading over the contract, it said if we're getting the schools, Safe Schools alert and the tracking, is that part of that contract?
No.
No, so we're not getting Safe Schools?
No, we're utilizing it for the videos.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on the consent agenda before we vote? Sheldon and then Maddie.
Chris, I think it was on the warrants, or either the warrants or the purchases, I'm not sure. I noticed Apache Industrial Services for $400,000. Are those the air filters, and are those the things that we saw in the slides by one of the students' presentations?
Yes, they're actually the Aero Light 2000. We refer to them as the Apache 2000. And just as a reminder, of that 400,000, we had about 150,000 worth of grant funds that helped to offset that for about 150 of them that went into our classrooms.
And that was from Grant and Rancheria, right?
Yes, Great Rancheria, yes. very generous.
That's
Super
fantastic.
appreciative.
Yeah, that's really great.
It wasn't
looked
just for
very
us.
cool.
They offered it to all the districts in Sonoma County, and we were able to comply with the guidelines of that grant and actually get them purchased, received, and into classrooms by December 1st.
Wow.
Pictures to confirm, because we actually had to take pictures of everyone in each classroom with the classroom number, etc. So
In all
shout
the
out.
classrooms in the district?
Well, 150, we had to show that they were
150.
deployed into 150, but we have about 420 of them, and we're in the process. Like Pen Grove just received, I think, 13 today, so that now every classroom at Pen Grove. So we're systematically delivering them to all the elementaries, and then we'll work on junior high and high schools.
Perfect. Thank you. Maddie, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question for Chris about the appointments to the Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee. I just, I totally understand the desire for continuity, but I also appreciate new diverse voices on our committees. So I was just wondering, I know at least one of that Tim has been on there for a long time. They're all, it's nothing against the people that are serving. I appreciate their service. They've been doing it a long time. I was just wondering how the positions were advertised. Were they advertised to the general community? Kind of, if yes, how and where? And then if not, kind of how we might be able to do some outreach to get, people at least applying.
So great questions. I would just like to clarify that Tim Shaley actually has not been on that long. I think he's only been on maybe 2 years. Alice has been on since the beginning, so she provides us with a historical perspective. We have additional vacancies, so we are very interested in adding more voices.
Great.
We have tried to fill these committees for the past couple of years. We've advertised in the newspaper. We put it, we've worked with Ashley in trying to do some blasts out there. So if there are people interested, they can reach out to us. We can provide them with an application. If you know of folks, we're happy to think about advertising again. Honestly, you know what I mean? They're not, it's not something people are banging down the door to participate on. But if you guys know people that are interested, they have to qualify in a certain ranking. So we have categories on the parcel tax and the bond oversight committee. But if you know people that are interested, please have them reach out to us. We're happy to provide them with an application and provide them with the categories that we have open. But we probably still have 3 or 4 vacancies on each. So there's plenty of room to kind of have that continuity and to add a fresh set of eyes.
Thank you. Any other?
Thank you, Chris.
Any
I
other
also had a question. I also had a question about Vector. Will this be right away? And then how are we going to ensure that it's being used?
So the answer is yes. Liz is waiting for this vote so that she can direct 6th through 12th grade principals on they will be providing specific steps how they are going to be canvassing and blanketing their population.
And I know I've said it previously, but I just don't want to see this take the place of like the human connection,
Yeah, no, I think it's the bigger question is going to be what do we do down the road, and how is that embedded into the greater discussion about the training that we're going to be providing through our trainer of trainers with Circle Up. I think we're looking for a coordinated TK through 12 plan related to a myriad of topics that seem to be that just need to be addressed as part of our issues related to this, sexual harassment, bullying, you name it, equity, inclusivity, gender issues. So it'll be part of a bigger discussion related to that. This year, though, we'll be providing some very factual information from a student lens on the law and where specifically each student should be going to receive support should they either witness inappropriate behavior or be a victim of inappropriate behavior.
I'll say that I was the most skeptical of this solution, and I actually got to participate in it and was very pleasantly surprised to be wrong. I don't like to admit when I'm wrong, but it was actually really good.
Is that for when you talked about harassment and that kind of thing, is that on campus or both on and off campus?
Harassment is harassment across the board. Yeah. Okay. It doesn't delineate between the two.
Okay, good.
These were the videos that he showed us. And I think do you remember, Ellen, we met with Gary a couple weeks ago, and it covered just harassment period.
Yes.
So the students knew.
I just wanted to clarify.
The bigger conversation will be down the road will be how do we work with our partners? As we know, such a large part of our students don't come to us until the 7th grade year. How do we work in it so that we really have an articulated program? So.
And Liz, is this your baby? You're going to be checking in with the sites and doing all that?
Yes, beginning tomorrow. I was waiting to see if it got the consent this evening. So thank you. And yes, I'm going to get rolling with it with sites tomorrow.
And Gary, is there any way that we can work with our feeder schools so that there is kind of a continuity?
Yeah, we've already done outreach on that. I anticipate what's probably going to end up happening is we are going to launch something as a community forum, and then build off of that. And so you know, there's a human connection to so much of this. Mm-hmm. And it's complicated because there's a lot of people involved, but we want to get everybody together and start. We've already had the conversations, or at least I've had the conversations with we have a lot of new superintendents in Petaluma. I've had conversations with the larger superintendents. I've had the conversation previously with some of the other smaller school districts. I think everybody's in support, in agreement. It's just kind of laying those details out
and coordinating.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same situation that we had with. It's very akin to the conversations we had with Petaluma Parents Against Drugs. Is that this is a Petaluma issue.
Right.
We need to take this on as a Petaluma issue. We can't take this on as unique to one group or another, because it's much bigger than that. And so that does involve, you know, businesses are part of that, can support us in part of that, you know, related to, you know, nonprofits, the city, you name it, start going down all of our entities. They need to be part of that process. We know we have a unique opportunity, because we happen to see a very large portion of the student population. That's what makes us, you know, unique in that, is that we can really affect, you know, large groups of people.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions, issues, ideas? Okay.
Can I ask Chris, I think it was you, Chris, about first student, if you could just go over that real quick. The buses.
Yeah. So as you know, we partner with First Student and have for many years to provide transportation for our special education students in particular. So, you know, we have 4 or 5 home to school routes, and then we have numerous special education routes during a typical year, this not being a typical year. And so that partnership is vital to the operation and maintaining our ability to provide those transportation services. So working with First Student, clearly we weren't going to pay them for not providing buses during the pandemic. But we did have a contract with them that said they would provide this service. And so we've been working with them on trying to come up with a creative solution that is able to maintain a certain level of working relationship between First Student and the district, and ensuring that we are the priority when students do need to get transported, because of course the challenge is if we basically said we have no contract and we canceled our contract, then if we come back to school, let's say March 1st, that's a hypothetical, I'm not saying we are, very hypothetical. We want to be in a position where we can very quickly add drivers to do our routes and to be able to transport students when we are put on notice that, hey, you've got 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, whatever we're going to know, to start pulling routes together. So we worked with them, and their bus drivers, the majority of them were put out on unemployment like many others, but First Student has been maintaining their benefits. And so in order to keep the 8 to 9 bus drivers that we want to continue on our routes, we've agreed to help compensate them for their benefits and to maintain the maintenance that's required on their vehicles. Just like our vehicles, we've maintained our mechanics because we need to continue maintaining buses. You cannot let them just sit. You have to be working on them, driving them, you know what I mean? We use them for food service delivery, we use them for packet delivery. And so that's kind of the long and the short of it, at a very, 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 very reduced rate, where a bus is generally $650 a day for one bus. This is less than $1,000 for all 9 buses. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm very happy to hear that they're getting their benefits. I'm glad we're helping, and I'm glad they're getting their benefits because they're on unemployment through no fault of their own. So any other comments, questions? We ready to vote? All in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Now we are moving on. We have one action item. We will, Chris did a lot of explaining of that already. We will open the chat for a very, very brief time if anybody has comments about this.
While it's open, so that we're maximizing our time, I'll just say that kudos to Chris for this one. This is I can't even tell you how much work she has spent, an inordinate amount. She probably wouldn't have done it if she knew how much time she would have cost her of her life. This is the first phase. The board asked us to come back with a plan for starting to create self-sufficiency. And that's what we're doing. You know, there's no way that we could do this entire project in one lump sum. It has to be broken up into thoughtful steps. And so this is the most thoughtful phase that we can accomplish. And I'll leave it at that. So it looks like we have let's go ahead and close the chat. You have one.
Joe Tremaine.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep. Good evening, board and other participants. My name is Joe Tremaine, and I'm a business representative for the Electrical Workers IBEW Local 551 Santa Rosa. I'd like to speak on the subject of the SGIP tonight, related to the microgrids and energy storage, as it relates to several construction-related points. First of all, the skilled and trained workforce. The skilled and trained installation of critical electrical infrastructure is of utmost importance with regards to project timelines, workmanlike installation, and the safety of the installation during construction, as well as the long-term safe usage of the project's intended purpose. Second, local hire. The usage of local journeymen and apprentices has long-term benefits to the local economy and its residents who both live and work in our local communities. Which leads me to the apprentices. Our apprenticeship program, currently in the apprenticeship class, we have 15% of the apprentices in the class right now that graduated from Petaluma City Schools. And that directly relates to the journeymen that are dispatched to our local projects The apprentices who study within the IBEW's Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee Center receive college credits at the Santa Rosa Junior College, which obviously has locations, campuses in Santa Rosa as well as Petaluma. Finally, the broad and ever-reaching accountability that comes with hiring local skilled and trained workforce to build the projects that we live in, the communities that we live in, and for the schools and the communities. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you. Okay, let's move this in, and then I know Sheldon has some questions, so.
Do you want me to give you some background and context after you voted, before you have questions?
Why don't we move it in, and then Sheldon can ask us questions and you can give us context. How's that sound? So, do I have a motion?
I move to,
It's a very long motion.
yeah.
You can just say
What is it? To discuss, to action, to approve. Well, I can't move to approve yet.
Yeah, you can.
Yes, you do.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you
To
can.
approve
Say M.1.
M11.
There you go.
I second.
Great. Sheldon?
Now we
Yeah, I was just super, super excited to see this on our agenda. I remember, when we contracted Terra Verde for this, part of the question we were asking them was, can this battery storage be one solution among multiple to help us get through power shutdowns, public safety power shutdowns from wildfire threats? And so I wanted to hear, Chris, what their conclusions were about the capacities of our solar systems to, generate the energy that these batteries can store, and do these batteries have the capacity to perhaps run a school during a public safety power shutdown?
So great questions. And let me start by saying, yes, we've taken a strong look at that. I will tell you that generally our solar PV, solar photovoltaic, does not generate enough energy to operate our schools. We still have significant utility. Petaluma High School in particular, for example, if you think about how many more solar panels CASA has than Petaluma High School, CASA has 2 complete parking lots. Petaluma High School has 1. And I've talked to Terra Verde about that, because I actually think we could expand that capacity and may want to consider doing that. So when you think about the battery backup system, what we've been having extensive conversations about is there's no way, it all comes down to money, right? How do you size a battery? So you're balancing what will the battery support versus the cost of installation, right? Or purchasing that battery. So because if we were to purchase batteries large enough to run the entire school, it'd be cost prohibitive for us. So it's not about the solar PV, whether it can supply the batteries. It can supply the batteries regardless of the size. The question is how much can we afford, and how much room do those batteries take? And so what we've been looking at is a balance of what are the essential systems that a school site needs to have in order to operate. So what we've been talking about is, okay, if I'm in a school, if our schools lose power, or the district office even, for me, the essential system is fire life safety. We need to be able to maintain all of the fire life safety systems. Generally speaking, they're pretty low voltage anyway. We need to maintain a certain level of interior lights, not necessarily exterior, but interior lights, right? Most of our student restrooms don't have windows, the interior restrooms, so you have to have a certain level of lighting if you're going to keep kids on campus and staff. And other critical systems such as our refrigeration systems. So part of the SGIP program is we needed to show that that having the battery systems that were being sized with the savings that it could create based on a potential PSPS event. The majority of our savings is in refrigeration. So the year before I started July 16. That spring, there was a power outage, and according to Ray, we lost $50,000 worth of food in one power outage at the warehouse, because that's where the main walk-in was. Part of why we focused on the 4 comprehensive is because that's where we have the major refrigeration units. So we have our central kitchen at Petaluma Junior High School. We have a smaller commercial grade central kitchen at Kenilworth, and we have 2 commercial kitchens at CASA and Petaluma High School. So we can show that we're going to have a significant amount of savings by having battery systems, and we don't therefore have food spoilage. So that's kind of part of what we've had to look at as we've looked at this SCHIP application. So we've been going through all of our systems trying to determine what systems do we absolutely need. Like, we don't absolutely need HVAC. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but if you're in an emergency situation, you don't need to run your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. You do need other systems. You need to be able to flush toilets. You need to be able to run water, fire, life safety, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what we looked at. How can we use the systems to keep our schools going on kind of a minimal basis? What do we minimally need to do that? And so that's the conversation that we've been having, kind of trying to pin down our systems. Like, we really don't need our gymnasium lights. Gymnasiums, huge power drain, because those halogen lights, huge power hogs, if you will. Classroom lights are less so, and if we can also think about doing an LED lighting upgrade, which has also been on our list of priorities. I know Gary's been talking to me about that since I started. That could reduce that power load even more as we're able to shift over to that. But that's kind of the approach that we've taken. So I don't know if that answered your question totally.
It does. I mean, what I'm hearing from you is there's the variable of cost of the battery, there's a variable of what we might get from SCHIP, and there's a variable of how little energy we could possibly run a school on.
Yes.
And that's what we're balancing as we go forward with this.
Yes. And I would say that data and connectivity is right up there.
Yeah, that's what I was
You know what I mean?
at.
So data and connectivity, that's one of them. But data and connectivity doesn't take 1/10 of the power of that HVAC unit. You know what I mean? So a lot of the systems that we consider critical systems, I think that they can size a battery that will help to run them.
So with this, that means that if we have a power outage, we won't lose a day of school.
We believe that that we can run a school on limp along on a minimal energy, just what Chris went over, school site, and run that for what would be equivalent of a full day. And that as we do our calendar, we would be building that out. Based on the projections that are there, we could definitely do that. And that's what our goal is.
And we're also looking at it from an emergency preparedness. I mean, part of the conversations that we're having with our consultants is, okay, what would happen if there was an emergency event where kids had to stay for a couple days? What do we need for that? So we're having kind of not just a PSPS event, but even from an emergency preparedness, we want to make sure that these battery backup systems can handle a certain level of managing, or us managing, providing for students if we need to, or even, God forbid, a really big event like an earthquake where, maybe, we have to set up an emergency shelter and so on and so forth. Keeping our refrigeration systems, for example, that's key. Think about medications that have to be refrigerated, those types of things.
Right.
Try to look at it from various angles, and then they're going through doing their calculations to determine what size battery do we need. I will tell you, I have spent a lot of quality time at all these sites looking in the PG&E electrical boxes, the switch gear and the switchboards, taking copies of PG&E meters. I actually watched, I'm sure our consultants would die if they heard me say this, but there was at one point at CASA where something kind of jumped out of that, and there was a little bit of screaming and jumping going on, not by me, but by others I was with. So I live in the country. I'm used to critters jumping out at me, but there's lots of spiders and cobwebs. Let's just say that. And we identified like this meter doesn't match the bill, and working with PG&E and trying to resolve it. So there's been a lot of legwork that's gone in. I now know more about our electrical systems on these campuses than I probably wanted to know, but a lot of it is analyzing how much are we using to determine what size battery do we need given the system. So that's all of the analysis that they're kind of going through taking.
And then what about the elementary schools?
So the elementary schools become much harder to actually show a viability for putting in microgrids, which is why we're kind of focusing on the secondary. And that's what Terra Verde, when they did the viability study, that's kind of what we looked at. Part of why McKinley is in this list is because of the size of McKinley. When you put McKinley Pax, it becomes one of our largest schools.
Yeah, remember that part of this is related to, we have to show a specific viability for the grant. So there may be, we anticipate somewhere down the road, you know, there'll be other opportunities, and hopefully those types of grants will fit better with the elementary.
And then we also have to determine, this also is the cost factor. Part of it is there enough room to put a large battery system next to the switchgear? So you have to be able to have the room to do that. So think about McDowell. The switchgear and the main electrical panels are in the kinder play yard.
Oh.
So when they put the solar system in, they actually fully fenced all of the new electrical they put in for that. And they took up a huge amount of real estate in the kinder play yard. I actually I had the gate reoriented. We were actually to recapture about 4 by 10 feet worth of fence line by pushing it back much closer to the electrical and reorienting the gate so that they could actually get access through the gate instead of having, 8 feet away from it. But McDowell and the further away you have the batteries from the main electrical feed coming onto the campus, the more cost you have. So, we're kind of looking at it, value engineering, if you will, every single school site. Like CASA, think about CASA. I don't know if anybody of you know where that is. It's right out there by, behind the counseling building. There's these lovely big gray panels. That's where the main electrical feed is. There's plenty of real estate there to be able to put batteries.
Got it.
McDowell, not so much. McKinley, it's no big deal. It's actually on the street side, outside of the PAX building, kind of by the portable. We could easily put battery there and secure it. So we literally have been walking around looking at it from that perspective. Petaluma Junior High, no problem. It's down by the locker room building. So anyway, Kenilworth, a little more challenging. It's actually inside a building. So Kenilworth actually got to be a little bit more challenging because we'd have to put it on the outside of a building. We kind of would have to reorient some pathways to do it. So anyway, I hope that answered your question. I'm sorry to be so verbose about it, but it's complicated and we've been looking at it from different angles.
Thank you. No, you've clarified for me. That was great. Thank you.
Just a quick clarifying. If we had like 5 days, which we've had, this would cover one of them.
No, not necessarily, because at the district office, maybe because we don't have solar. But remember, at CASA and Petaluma High, you've got solar. And so the question becomes,
oh yeah,
do we shut all our systems down at night because it may not be keeping us up at night, but they're going to recharge during the day. So that becomes the conversation.
Awesome.
But only where we have solar. Transportation is a whole other conversation, because what you're going to be seeing, not at this next meeting, but probably the February meeting, is we are actually looking at, we've received a grant to replace 5 of our buses with electric buses. We have another grant in process to get 4 to 6 more buses, electric buses, and the electrical infrastructure. So what we're actually looking at doing is replacing or adding a main switch. At the transportation yard, there's 4 meters, believe it or not. There's one for the warehouse, one for the formerly known as the K6 Music Building, because that was owned by the city at one time. So those were those buildings. One for Marcia's office, the transportation office, and one for the main mechanics bay. So what we're looking at doing is collapsing 3 down into 1 and adding this large switchgear. I'm sure this is more than you ever wanted to hear. But the bottom line is we want to do that kind of to not only do the battery project, but also forward thinking to the electrical infrastructure too. So it will accommodate. So we're actually working with PG&E on the electricity necessary for the buses. We're applying for a PG&E grant. So we're hoping to actually upgrade the electrical service to that site, put it into one switchgear, and then that switchgear would be the perfect place to put the batteries. So they're 2 separate projects, totally unrelated, but we're kind of coordinating them so that they'll kind of go hand in glove, if you will.
Was that a Volkswagen settlement money on some of those buses?
I think that the one we got, yes. The 5 buses that we just received, yes.
Good.
And those buses are not cheap. So a standard large bus, about $100,000. You know how much these buses are? $400,000.
For an electric bus? Holy
To
cow.
give you an idea.
Good thing we got.
So getting grants is so we're actually working on
Volkswagen for being shady.
like batteries are expensive, you know, batteries are expensive. So we're hoping to come back maybe February 9th, if that's the February board meeting date, and bring some contract agreements for you to approve on these 5 buses. We're analyzing the contracts right now. Super excited because the grant's going to pay for about 95% of those 5 buses. So, but they won't, and they take like 18 months to build. So you have to approve the agreements, takes 18 months. Then for that 18 months, we'll be setting up the infrastructure. So.
That's wonderful.
Are
You know,
we
I just wanted to say that I had as my notes, microgrids, yay! And then I said, thank you, Chris.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of good stuff going on. You know, I think we're consumed by the challenges that we've been facing because they're huge, but there is a lot of really good stuff going on in the background. So,
you ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Okay.
thank you.
We're on to comments from the public on discussion items. The chat will be open. There are administrative, human resources items, ed services, and student services. Sandra, I have you down for the ed services for your comment then, okay? And the chat will be open for a moment.
I believe a lot of it came in non-agenda items. So
Yeah, I think so too. Let's go for it.
okay, we'll close down the chat box.
All right, so Rotary Lend a Hand to Education Grant Awards update by the superintendent.
Yeah, I just, usually Rotary comes to us. Obviously in the pandemic, it's been a little bit crazy. I just wanted to point out that and thank the Rotary clubs of Petaluma Valley and Petaluma Sunrise when they and for their donation to us for their Lend a Hand education program. Totaled roughly $4,599. And so I think they gave out roughly about $14,000 to a variety of different organizations. So I wanted to thank them, thank their chair, Jennifer Carter, and Chris, myself, and Cliff did a Rotary presentation last week on the pandemic. And so it's great to have them as partners.
Could you just explain briefly what Lend a Hand to Education is?
It's grants that teachers make for, and they provide small grants to school teachers, no administration fees. They go out to the teacher. Could be for, $500 for a science activity, or different, just different small, very quick cash grants to do a variety of different activities in the classroom.
Yeah, they gave me $1,000 for close-up one year. They're awesome.
You must have been special then.
Yeah, well, I am. It's civic education, and Rotary really. Anyway, Williams Settlement Quarterly Uniform Complaint Report. There is no complaints. So we can just move on from there. Okay, small learning cohort. Sandra. Sandra.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Hi. So this statement was unanimously approved by the Executive Council of the Petaluma Federation of Teachers on Monday, January 11th, 2021. First, we want to take this chance to thank the board, the superintendent, as well as district and site administrators for their leadership during this unprecedented time. From the beginning of the pandemic, calm and thoughtful decisions have kept our members and our students safe and allowed for our students to continue to receive the quality education they deserve. Thinking back to last March, when it became clear that we would be transitioning to distance learning, no one could have imagined the full impact of COVID-19 would have on our lives. Our members immediately began the transition to distance learning and began looking for ways to effectively deliver instruction, as well as meet the needs of our students and their families. Specialists had to find ways to deliver much needed services to their students as well. Our members have worked tirelessly and shown a true commitment to their students and the community. Sonoma County has remained in the purple tier, the most restrictive tier of the California COVID-19 color-coded tracking system since its inception. We are now in the deep purple tier. In addition, the entire Bay Area is under a stay-at-home order due to the number of COVID-19 cases in our community and the critical lack of ICU beds. The order has been extended indefinitely. Now is not the time to relax safety standards. Now is not the time to bring students or staff back to any classroom. The board approved Resolution 2021-10 on November 10th, 2020. It might have seemed unlikely that COVID-19 cases and deaths would rise to an unthinkable level at that time, but that is exactly what has happened. For the week of November 8th through the November 14th, there were 645 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Sonoma County. That was alarming, to be sure. In the last 7 days, January 6th through January 11th, there have been 1,612 confirmed COVID-19 cases. That is far more than double the amount of confirmed cases in 2 months' time. The number of deaths in Sonoma County due to COVID-19 has more than doubled since the passage of this resolution. Clearly, Sonoma County is in a treacherous situation. Resolution 2021-10 states that Petaluma City Schools will develop and implement small learning cohorts led by credentialed teachers for English language learners and special education students who are most impacted by distance learning. That is a worthy goal, and the Petaluma Federation of Teachers supports returning to in-person learning as soon as it is safe to do so. We cannot support mandating that any teacher or specialist return to in-person teaching before safety can be guaranteed. How can the board mandate that some teachers return to teach small cohorts while we are under a stay-at-home order and continue to be in the deep purple tier? How can the board choose who must make the difficult decision to risk their own safety as well as the safety of their family, or choose to forfeit their income? In addition, the Federation has concerns about the integrity and practicality of returning to school in small cohorts. We all want to return to the classroom environments we had before the pandemic, but that is not possible. Upon return, students will be expected to wear masks, sit 6 feet apart while facing forward. Teachers and specialists will not be allowed to work with a child without some sort of safety measures that are questionable in their efficacy separating them. There will be no normal recesses nor working together in small groups. These conditions may be especially difficult for special education students. In addition, families may be expected to quarantine if their child has an exposure to COVID-19, forcing them to miss work. This has already happened in existing Petaluma City Schools small cohorts. There are 2 approved vaccinations at this time, and the state has said that educators will have the opportunity to be vaccinated in the next round of vaccinations. The Petaluma Federation of Teachers is formally requesting that no teacher or specialist be mandated to return to in-person learning before they've had the opportunity to be fully vaccinated. Even after being fully vaccinated, we have concerns regarding subsequent transmission of the virus and its variants to and from the work environment. We care about the safety of our families and our students' families. There's a potential light at the end of the tunnel. We want to continue the positive working relationship we've cultivated with the district during this unprecedented time of COVID-19. We believe all our students will benefit from our continued collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, so we are getting an update. Would that be Matthew or Cliff or Jason?
Yeah, Matthew and Cliff, Jason are going to be providing an update, and then we'll talk about some potential issues and next steps.
So just want to start, this issue is around distance learning cohorts. So just to give a quick update, we have all 7 of our elementary schools and our comprehensive secondary schools have some of these distance learning cohorts on the campus, on their campuses, or they're sharing them with other sites. So a reminder, these are distance learning cohorts really designed to support students who are struggling or who are most at risk as identified by site principals and staff. So for general education, students with IEPs, English language learners, it's really a safe space for identified students to have that space where they can Zoom with their teacher. And I just want to give a shout out to all of our distance learning cohort staff. They're doing an incredible job in a very difficult situation. So at the board's direction, resolution 2021-10, we've organized a special education working group to develop a set of recommendations for how to meet the needs of our students in specialized programs. And particularly, we're talking about SDC, South County Consortium, and full inclusion. And we're talking about a hybrid instruction, meaning in-person and distance learning at the same time. We have, as part of that committee, we have 50 highly dedicated and engaged volunteer staff members, district site administration, certificated members, classified members, and we have our CSEA and PFT union partners participating as well. Our first meeting was January 6th. We have 4 more meetings this month. We try to get a tight time frame here just in the month of January. January 13th, tomorrow, 15th, 20th, and 25th. This tight timeline was designed to really work through the issues related to bringing back cohorts and developing a recommendation. We've broken it into 4 key considerations: schedule, that kind of a daily schedule, weekly schedule. What is that going to look like for the various programs that we have among SDC, SOCC, and full inclusion? Learning spaces, health and safety, and then hybrid learning. Those are sort of the four considerations that we're tackling right now.
Thank you, Matthew.
Open up to questions. I know that Cliff, Liz, Molly, Melinda are all part of the committee as well. A lot of us are, so.
How are the cohorts that are already established? I know we had a few outbreaks, but are they going along pretty well?
They are going along pretty well. We definitely, as you said, we've had some concerns, and Liz in particular has been working very closely with those cohorts, shutting them down. She's kind of coming at it from a student perspective, and I've been coming at it from a staff perspective, how we shut them down, how we quarantine, how we do contact tracing, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, we haven't had what I would call outbreaks. We've had, students that have gotten sick, and so we've removed them from the cohorts. And there have been times when we've had to close the cohort. But as far as we can tell at this point, there's been no transmission within a cohort.
I know that doing site visits, I went to a couple different schools and looked at their, and it was amazing. The kids were
Yeah.
all working, you know, it was just very impressive. I went to
Yeah,
church.
and they've been great about, you know, the forms, the temp taking, making sure students are wearing masks, keeping the distance. So that's really helped with safety.
Right.
So
And I was just going to add, you know, I've heard from a number of teachers who had students who were struggling at home and now are part of these cohorts who said they've been, you know, 180-degree turnaround. They've been very supportive. It's exactly what these students needed. So just, you know, heard great things about students who are in these programs and are getting the support they need, which was the whole point, right? Making sure they can access their education. So it is working great for the students who are involved.
I also want to give a shout out to the classified staff. I mean, they're wonderful. They're heroes. I mean, they're in the classroom, they're helping those kids. And as Cliff said, the kids are really doing well.
So I guess this is directed, I think maybe to Matthew, I'm not sure. So the context of that resolution number 10, we had just seen progress reports from the late fall. There were, you know, some shining points in there, but some really glaring problems that and that's really what we were trying to address as a board, you know, the EL and the special ed particularly. And what I imagined, and I'll speak for myself, what I had imagined and hoped was that we can get enough of the willing teachers and the willing students together in those groups for in-person instruction, because we've all have heard from some teachers who are willing to come back and some students who are willing to come back. Can you speak, Matthew, if you know, or about the viability of, I understand that special ed is highly specific in instructional approaches and with student populations. And you know, what I had imagined was this meeting of willing teachers and students was kind of modeled on what we saw successful in the distance learning cohorts. But my understanding is that the population we're dealing with in special ed is variable enough where it's not the same situation as in the distance learning cohort. So can you just speak to the viability of bringing in willing teachers and willing students together in terms of numbers and staffing and those kinds of things?
Sure, Sheldon. And Molly and Melinda, feel free to jump in as well. I think the way I break down this is not a plug and play where it's second grade teachers. So we're going to just shift students around and bring in a few teachers and the students who want to be in that cohort. It's really when we're talking about South County Consortium and our SDC classrooms, we have preschool classrooms, life skill classroom, medically supportive, therapeutic support program, the SDC, and then the full inclusion, and then also the adult continuing program. It would be very challenging to just say, okay, we have this group of students and then mix them up into different classes with teachers. It doesn't really, it wouldn't really work that way. The medically support program would not all of a sudden mix with an SDC program. It's really, we need that teacher and that group of students. Melinda and Molly, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, and some of it's even based on credentialing. For example, I have some wonderful teachers. I couldn't put preschoolers with K-1-2 because the preschool credential is very specific, special education, for example, from moderate to severe. And I mean, we could do some, but it would be not a lot of grouping. We'd have to stay fairly close to the classes that we have. Although, like, for example, I have 2 life skills high school classrooms. It's possible that there could be a combination there because they're teaching the same group of students. But
Yeah.
There are some restrictions, and our therapy support program is very specific. They are working on general education curriculum. They're in gen ed classes. That's a little more challenging as well.
Yeah, and for us, it's by grade range. We have, a K through 3, and then we have a 4 through 6, and we have a 7, 8, and then a 9 through 12, and then we have a 18 to 22 program. And so it would be really difficult to mix some of those classes because the needs are different. Also in full inclusion, especially in the elementary, the students, are considered to be moderate to severe with their disabling conditions, and they're in a general ed class. So, it's not quite like an SDC where we have a group of students. We'd have to figure out how the students with these, kind of greater needs can be taught when they are, basically a student in, one student in a class, in a general ed class of, 25 or 30. And how will they be taught? Is it by the instructional assistant, or, does that teacher come back? So there are just a lot of variables, that we're trying to work through. But I would say that for Petaluma City Schools, other than the South County Consortium, our need is based on grade levels.
Are some of the special ed teaching assistants working in the small cohorts that have already been established?
No.
No.
Go ahead, Melinda.
Yeah, not for us. They're all working with the students on Zoom. They're and doing materials, and they're keeping very busy, but they're
I'm
not
sure
working.
they are. I was just wondering if.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, and that was another point. As we think about these cohorts, we need trained trained assistants to work in the classrooms in these cohorts.
Absolutely.
We specifically stayed away from as much as possible. I think completely stay away from our special ed instructional assistants because they are already they already have a full overflowing plate working with their class and their students, Zooming with that group.
Okay.
And so I just also note, and I know I spoke about this a little bit, but one of the key differences that I see is particularly coming out of that first meeting. We have our distance learning cohort, just so it's clear for everybody, distance learning cohort where we have up to 12 students, socially distanced, PPE, they're sitting there on their iPad and they are Zooming with their teacher. It's really that safe place for students where they can be, they're focused, they have a safe place to go. When we open it up as a special ed cohort, we've kind of talked about how could that work. It's different in that in the distance learning cohorts, they're Zooming with their teacher and getting help and support there versus the teacher's actually in the room. And based on the many conversations I've had with teachers, it's about in that group, about 50%, their sense is about 50% of the students would come to the cohort, 50% would stay at home. So then you have a situation where the teacher's there working with that 50%. Then there's another 50% at home who are also taking, depending on what class it is, could be taking a biology class. And so there's a lot of nuances. It has to be a very different model than what the distance learning cohorts look like.
And I know this is, I know the answer before I ask probably, but I just have to ask the students, maybe Cliff, in EL and special ed who aren't doing well in the last grading period, they're not naturally clustered in a classroom, are they?
Of course.
No, not unless they're like specifically English language development, ELD, they would be, but otherwise, no. And I would add, we do have teachers who've expressed interest, English language, EL teachers, as well as, special ed teachers, express an interest to be able to come back and serve their students in smaller cohorts. We're just trying to work through the process, with this group so that, we're on the same page with PFT, but we are, you heard the statement from Sandra, we are kind of at that point now where we're running up against this issue.
So just to be really clear, the impasse, I guess, that we are facing right now is with these instructional cohorts for these students who are suffering the most from distance learning, we have to serve them as a group is kind of where the crux is, right? And the question is, do we serve them? Do we bring them back now in person or do we not? But they have to be, in terms of numbers, they have to be together. Is that roughly, is that close?
Well, that creates the challenge of how to do that.
Right. I mean, we can't split them apart. Right.
That's an instructional error. I mean, you heard a very different message related to health and safety that was just shared by our speaker.
Sure.
I think that we are at a kind of an important critical juncture right now, though, and I want you to reflect on listening to the many voices that have shared with the board and the district that we've had individual conversations. Our individual conversations have been very consistent with what we've heard from a wide variety of people, whether that's PFT or CSCA member, PFT member, or parents. We've in the last 6 months, it's been clear that we have varied opinions regarding the safe return to a hybrid school operations. Just tonight, I mean, what we heard consistently from Patty Brown is we need a timeline. That has been a consistent theme that has cut across the last 6 months. We've heard that consistently, this concept of what are the conditions that would bring us back and bring our students and teachers back. And when we say bring our students, teachers back, what we're talking about is bringing them back to a hybrid model. It's clear to me right now more than ever that we need to identify those conditions for the purposes of planning for the eventual reopening of school. The conditions determine this, not a predetermined date. Again, I say for the eventual return of school. Kids will be coming back. End of story. We all know that. We just don't know when that's going to be. But we do need to identify what those conditions are, where we feel safe bringing back our employees and our students on a greater scale than what we're doing right now. And why I say we're at the juncture or the critical point is because much of all the operations pieces are in place and ready to go. The planning that needs to take place now is all dependent on what those conditions are. Once we know those conditions, now we will be able to move forward with our next steps in the plan. Because once we get those set of conditions met, it's going to take us some time to be able to be ready still to start school, because there's personnel issues related to it. That in and of itself is going to be really critical. So I think for that reason, my recommendation right now is that to the board is we start to focus in on that, and we start bringing back some proposals on conditions. And what conditions are you comfortable with for the eventual return of school? Again, talking about coming back for hybrid, and what would that look like? That would be my recommendation, because we can't move any farther. It's even going to be difficult for the special ed committee to move much farther unless they know what those conditions are, because they matter. They matter a lot in how we develop this out. I think there's a lot of positive things at the end of the horizon. I think we're all concerned, obviously, about the health and safety of our staff, our students, and the parents. Contrary to what we heard today or what we've heard in the paper, we have not received, Petaluma City Schools, all of my meetings that I've had at the administrative level, at the county level, I have not received any communications about vaccinations, about when we can anticipate coming back. When can we anticipate being able to offer that? All the information that I have received is the same information that you might have received through the Press Democrat or through the radio. It's all been secondhand information. I have not yet been, and this is obviously now looking, if you've been looking at, this is a statewide issue. What's the right word? There's not a surplus, but there are vaccinations. There's over 1.5 million, I heard last, that are ready to be deployed. But there's something in the backlog in the system about the pecking order, about who's getting those, that is causing some operational issues. So I anticipate we're going to hear that. Is that a condition that we would utilize to as one of the things to bring back? Quite likely could be, but I think we need to really work on that, because I go back to what Patricia said. I think that we need to be able to give as much direction as we can to our parents, to our students, to our teachers, and to the community about what that looks like. And it seems counterintuitive when you're moving into deep purple, and we are in deep purple. Much of the data that Sandra shared was spot on. It seems counterintuitive, but this is exactly why we need to do it now, because it's going to take us some time to be prepared when it is time to bring our students back. And so
I think it's really important for everybody to realize that the lack of direction from the Department of Health, from the state, from the county, it's leading to that frustration, and we want answers and they're not really forthcoming. So it's just, I'm really frustrated. I know we all are, because we just, when are teachers going to get vaccinated? Why can't you just set it? I don't understand why, there's so little information and direction, but that's what we're dealing with. And so we're kind of flying blind in a lot of ways.
I do want to say one other thing because otherwise I'll be remiss later on for not saying something. Dr. Harrington at the county office, our superintendent of schools, has been great.
Yes.
About providing us information. It's not from lack of communication from the county office of education, where I don't know where the hiccup is, but I know it's not there. He has been really, really great from the very beginning, and been very responsive to all of that. And so I know we use the county, and I'll use the county term, and the county means something different.
Yeah.
Depending on, but in this case, it's the County Office of Education has been great in this process, and I will continue to be that for us.
Well, I'll throw out some suggestions then, just to keep the discussion going. I'm not a public health official, and I don't want to be, and there are folks who are in that field that are giving us guidelines. And so, I would want us, one consideration, benchmark could be when we get to red tier, and or when vaccines are available to our staff.
Well,
Pardon me?
know how much the tier system is still viable.
In California, from what I understand, education is in tier 1B, and we're still in 1A, but at least it's close. It's on the horizon. I heard the county health officers say, February-ish, something like that.
Other thoughts?
There's, well, along those lines, then if you're looking at a time frame, you need 2 vaccinations. So then to think about, do we want to have everybody vaccinated with 2 before we bring people back, including being in the red? Just like, because if we want to give a time frame, I think that's really important too.
And then what about those people or teachers that choose not to be vaccinated? I mean, we can't.
Yeah, I think that there's, I think that's gonna, it's gonna be really hard not to go down that rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
Our focus should be first about what does it look like for reopening, and then what are the implications of that? Because once you come up with a plan, then we have to plan for those other items.
Right.
Like we know that you know, folks that choose not to become vaccinated, at least as I understand the law, that's their right. And if they choose to not, there's a process where we would work with them. If they were not coming back to work, they would not lose their job for not coming back to work. But there are procedural steps that human resources would have to work on. But again, those would all be depending on the conditions that were laid out.
I do have a question about, do we have a plan for a survey for both parents and for teachers on if they would be willing to come back and under what conditions? It seems like that would be helpful.
Well, we were thinking of doing a survey once the conditions had been identified. That then it's like, here are the conditions, you know.
Oh, okay.
What percentage, because they're going to ask the same question.
Yeah.
It goes back and forth. It's like, so unless you set a scenario out for them. So for example, you know, one potential condition could be a staggered model, which is what most districts are looking at, which is not everybody coming back at one particular time. There is logistic reasons why that may have to be a necessity because of just an operations piece.
Just like the rollout of the distance learning cohorts.
Right.
Start small and go big. And if that is operationally, you know, a smart practice, then can we please put EL and special ed in that first tier of kids to come back?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So could I throw out a couple just suggestions? Take them, throw them out, whatever. You know, technically right now we're allowed to bring back small cohorts. So we could bring back we could bring back special ed, but we're working through a process with our staff. So maybe it's something like when we get out of Deep Purple, I know that's not an actual tier, but when we get closer to exiting Purple, maybe we look at, you know, giving the green light to bringing back these next groups, you know, EL and special ed. When we get in the red, then maybe it's, you know, once we're in the red, you know, we'll need 3 or 4 weeks to then plan and prepare to bring back that first tier of whatever we identify, TK through second or whatever, and then the next tier. Just you know, we could do this in phases. We don't necessarily have to wait till we're all the way in red or fully vaccinated. I mean, I understand the interest there, but we could phase this out in a number of ways.
You know, not to throw a complete wrench in all of this, but you know, this is just a thought, and I know anyway, just to throw it out there. I was at a meeting, I think it was with the summit and of the nonprofit organizations, and we were talking about how to serve these kids that are really struggling, and especially English language learners and special ed. And so we had a couple of principals and several teachers. And the principals were very interesting in terms of they have had these cohorts on their campuses. So what was this, in December, I think? And what they've noticed is that it's the children 4, 5, and 6 that are really, really hurting because they're not in school. You know, they really miss school. They've had, you know, kindergarten through 3rd grade on campus. That's where they see their friends. They love their teachers. They love school. And they're grieving that loss, and they can really see that in those 4th, 5th, and 6th. Whereas when you have a kindergartner, as much as they need that, I mean, I don't want it to be a competition, but they don't have that same connection with school yet. And so maybe to kind of turn it on its head and bring back those 4th, 5th, and 6th graders first, just to throw a wrench in everything. It was just an interesting idea that I've been thinking about ever since. I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, we can just, yeah, I mean, yeah, we can, I think we'll be bringing back some conditions for consideration, and then, you know, you're going to have to kind of work through those issues and determine what you think is going to be the most logical landing place for it. You know, we've, you know, I will say that nationally, speaking on a national basis, most of the literacy researchers are primarily concerned about the TK, K 1 and 2 students as being the most severely impacted because the nature of the instruction that has to take place in that area.
No, that totally makes sense.
And just that they are not equipped. They are not as equipped to work independently as other grade levels, as grade levels can, you know, advance on the level of independence. And that now that's a national perspective.
Also the foundation, it's where they learn all the basics so that they can continue.
Caitlin, what I know that you got cut off a couple times. What are your thoughts?
Caitlin.
She was having some issues with her technology too. Matt, Joanna, what about you?
I think, like, do you mean like moving forward? What do I think? Or
well, I mean, as far as
a lot that was
just the concept of coming back and having a discussion about conditions. You know?
I would like to, if we could even have a resolution by the next meeting.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There will be. There has to be.
Yeah. I mean, like, people keep saying, I mean, they're emailing, coming to meetings, people want to know. And I mean, conditions change all the time. You know, there's an update from the governor, I feel like every other day. I know it's not, but the best of our ability to give, other people have said the same thing, give families like a date, at least a target. You might not be able to meet that target, but just something.
And also a condition. So under these conditions, would you come back to work? Under these conditions, would you send your kid to school? We need to know that, but we can't ask until we can give them those conditions.
Caitlin, are you comfortable with looking at having discussion about the conditions and resolution for conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my dog, who's a rescue dog, just got out and ran away. So
oh God.
Go get him.
I have to, yeah. Bye. Love y'all.
So just to reiterate, Gary, so far what we're hearing on conditions to explore are, we have heard, you know, when we move to red, or when vaccines are, you know, available to our staff. There's the wrench that Cliff brought up, that, you know, we don't have to, you know, abide by those, you know, by the public health tier system. We can move earlier if we wanted a solid date, but I don't know, I'm not hearing a ton of.
Yeah, that would be related to the, you certainly, you could move earlier as it relates to you're not bound by that for the small learning cohorts.
Oh, right. So, okay, so the other dimension.
The board, you discounted the concept of elementary waivers quite quite a while ago.
Okay.
While schools were still in purple. And so in absence of that, everything, in absence of doing something specifically for small learning cohorts while we're still in purple, that's one thing that probably should be discussed. Then it's looking at the next criteria over, which is the red criteria, which is where most districts are developing or looking at, well, what conditions would lead to return.
And what I'm hearing on the viability of the small learning cohorts while in purple is that for the students who need it the most, they're not naturally clustered, and we aren't likely to have that pairing of the right teachers with the right students to make them operational. And so I'm just trying to bring this together. What I'm hearing is vaccine and red are going to be key indicators of, moving towards return to school.
That's what I hear.
Me too.
Alan, is that what you hear? Joanna?
And a staggered opening
Yeah. And
at grade level.
I would say that the staggered opening is a concept that is not as much health related and safety as related operationally. It's going to be very difficult to because it could be May, for example, who knows, when you meet your conditions, you still have staff that could choose not to return, and we have to hire for that. That's why it's important, going back to the survey. Once we know the conditions from the board, then we start surveying teachers and say, if these conditions are met, are you coming back? You go to other staff, if these conditions are met, are you coming back? And that tells Matthew, okay, this is who we're going to need to fill positions for. And then those employees also need to know, so now what are my rights under these conditions, and how, and what are my leave options? So then HR has to develop out the leave pieces. Well, that's challenging to do if you're trying to do it for upwards of 900 employees at one time, or, in the worst case scenario, obviously. But if we take it into chunks, then it's more manageable.
Exactly.
We're going to struggle between our academic mission, our devotion to our commitment to our students' education, and on the other hand, our public health, and the same students' public health and same teachers' public health. And right now, the criteria we're throwing towards you, I think, lean towards favoring public health standards. And so I just want to say it's never too early to be thinking about making it up on the education side, and start planning for mitigating the losses we've experienced during this pandemic. The governor's budget, it's a wild dream right now, but the promise of summer school is pretty amazing, what he's suggesting. And so I just want to put in the back of all of our minds, when we come out on the other end of this thing, let's put some focus on making up those losses. We're asking a sacrifice right now from our students that, bear with us through this pandemic. This is going to be hard. Let's give them something at the end.
Well, and and to that end, you might have to look at some policy that supports that.
Yes.
So I think that there may need to be some policy at some point, particularly, I think for all students, but, particularly the ones that are at grades 9 through 12 we'll have to see what the data is.
Yeah.
We'll come back with something on more specific on this at the next meeting.
Okay. Our last item, Circle Up update. I believe that would be Liz.
That is me, and I'm going to screen share my presentation.
I have to say, I'm loving the training. It's
Excellent. Yes, I am too. I mean, Tiffany's so great and the information is.
Tiffany's amazing. And just working with my group, like we're going to be doing our first circle tomorrow at Cherry Valley.
Mhm.
And we have a student in our group and she's just, you know, it's great. I'm really.
Yeah, it's having the students has really added a dimension of
Yes,
authenticity to the work.
absolutely.
So with that, we have 43 practitioners right now that are being trained by Circle Up, Trustee Webster included, and staff and students. It's just an amazing group going out to sites and running their circles. This past semester in fall of 2020, they did a site survey, data collection and staff discussions was done by the principals based on the information that they got back from their staffs, with questions about, you know, what is the climate on your campus. The group also of practitioners also learned how to do community agreements. They planned, designed, and facilitated team building circles. And right before the break, Tiffany ran a workshop for us on diversity, implicit bias, and discrimination. So now we're looking into the spring and working with Circle Up. Some of our next steps include in January, we're going to start learning how to plan, design, and facilitate discussion circles. So before it was how to build community agreements. We had individual teams go out to staffs, and like Trustee Webster said, hers is tomorrow, and kind of work with them on, you know, how can we talk to each other? How can we just kind of have some relationship building conversations? The discussion circles are a next level of that we really want to train on, which is creating space to have those deeper conversations about the more challenging topics and events as we're building relationships with the groups. And then also this semester looking to have a workshop on restorative justice principles and practices. Again, knowing that once we build those relationships, once we start having those deeper conversations, the next thing we want to do is help students and staff be able to talk to each other and really come up with creative solutions towards restorative justice rather than always looking at, you know, punitive ways to deal with issues on our campuses. So that's where we are with Circle Up. We also last semester at a board meeting, Trustee Pond mentioned wanting to have a committee for harassment and discrimination. And I know a lot of the community's been wondering, where are we with that? And so wanted to update on that as well. So from after that, we met with Trustee Pond and Trustee Quinn to talk about what is the best way. You know, we can have this committee, but we don't just want to gather people and try to figure out what to talk about. What we want to know from the students in student voice is what are the issues? What is it keeping students, you know, maybe from coming forward and reporting if there's an incident on campus or if they're having an issue? What are some of the incidents on campus that they're seeing that maybe we're not hearing about? And you know, if we are hearing about it, what is students' perception of how we're responding? You know, obviously those have all come up at board meetings with the Maya's presentation, with some of our public comment, and so we know that that's really important in our community. And so we are asking Circle Up to facilitate both a middle school group and a high school group, independent of having any district staff in the room, because we want students to feel like they have a safe space, like they can say what they need to. You know, it's not having an administrator or a board member or a teacher there asking them, you know, what are the issues? It's someone from the outside that's going to say, you know, we know this is an issue. We've heard your voices and we want you to have a safe, anonymous space to voice that. So, and to gather information. So we're recruiting, in the process of recruiting some middle school and some high school students who maybe haven't had a voice in the past, maybe aren't as vocal about issues. We're looking to our guidance coordinators, some of our school counselors to maybe recommend students and talk to students to see if they might be interested in being a part of this focus group. Maybe some of the quieter students who we want to know, why haven't you come forward, you know, in the past, and what's stopping you from feeling comfortable doing that? And then Circle Up will run those two focus groups of questions. They're going to create a flyer so the students fully understand what it is. And they're looking for about 5 to 7 students per focus group session. The purpose of that is so that we better understand the gaps between the issues that, you know, students are having and what's actually being reported. So Circle Up will define that for that purpose for them. They'll define harassment for the students. They're going to set norms, and then they're going to have 3 open-ended questions where each student will have a chance to respond to those questions. Then they're going to take all that data that they get from those 2 focus groups, and they're going to create a report for us, for the committee that gets created in a qualitative nature, to include an outline of the session. What were some of the, who were the facilitators? What was the summary of the question asked? And the main responses that students shared on those topics. Again, all anonymous. We're not going to say, who were the students and who said what, but just what came from the student voices in the room. And we're thinking, based on the timeline, if we're able to get the students and run those February, Circle Up said they can have those reports ready when we return from spring break around April 12th. And so then the idea will be that then a committee can form who can look at what came of those student voices, what really are the issues, and then we can pinpoint and have a real focus on what it is that we address in that committee for harassment and discrimination. So that's where that is.
That's great. I like that.
Liz, can we ask if it's already happening that there be affinity groups so that these kids can share openly, feel comfortable sharing openly?
We haven't.
Like students who identify as whatever.
Right. Are you saying on individual campuses or district? So that's a good question, and I can follow up with principals. I know that after Amaya's presentation, CASA has gotten started, and they had set up a meeting which then got postponed because of finals, and but Amaya has now put a group together of students that are, were part of the the Dear CASA and wanting to have more voice, and Casa Grande is kind of running a little bit ahead with meeting with that group of students to capture their voice and talk about CASA specific issues. But other than that, I mean, affinity groups I can think of would just be clubs, that are on campus, like the Black Students Union. I don't know that it's necessarily, or the LGBTQIA plus groups that we have on campuses. I would consider all of those affinity groups, but I don't know if those affinity groups are necessarily, being invited into separate focus groups.
Can we make it a part of this committee? Like, I mean, maybe even as a next step, like, I love what you presented.
Yeah, I think one of the goals would be what we're trying to do is we know some people that have been very active in this discussion that would already be on a committee. So they're going to bring their background and experiences to that. And so the focus groups are also trying to reach out to some other individuals as well to find out what issues so that we get a nice cross section of students that are participating.
Yeah, it would be nice to hear from students other than the ones that we have heard from a lot. We
just don't want to be presumptuous so that we know what the issues are. We want to hear from the students. That we know the students will. We know that we have some students that have a lot to say about this, and some can provide us some good guidance. We also feel like we're responsible to reaching out to the student population. The tricky part in all of it was who's reaching out, and so we focused on our guidance counselors doing that work, or our behavior specialists, and not our administrators. We want this to be, and so because they have a unique perspective of individuals that they've spoken to regarding situations that have occurred on campus. So it's.
But I think if we want
I like and appreciate what you say, Joanna, around the idea of affinity groups, because we do have clubs that are sort of these natural affinity groups, and it wouldn't hurt to maybe carry, the questions that Circle Up asks in this particular focus group of maybe, students who haven't had as much of a voice, but taking those same questions to the various clubs and maybe just running a focus group with a club who's already sort of a natural affinity group, and seeing, what comes from their voice as well. That can certainly happen, over the course of the semester.
One of the things that we want to be able to do is we're trying, and if we have some groups like that feel comfortable with individuals such as myself leading a focus group, that would be great, because there are some cost implications with always having an outside party doing some of this work, but we're truly trying to start out first with making it as, we don't want to have, well, I don't feel comfortable because it's a district official or the principal or a teacher or what have you, that really a neutral third party. So we're trying so that we can get some really, hopefully get as much unfiltered information as possible to be able to disseminate.
Right. And I know several of us attended the scope presentations, or at least watched webinars after, where they had the Black voices, APIA voices, like different voices. And the discussions there were just so like raw and honest, because they were having discussions with people who had had these same experiences. And you could tell some kids were quiet and they opened up later, but I think it's because they were in those affinity spaces. Yeah. So I understand starting, generally, but at some point, down the road, at least group these guys by how they identify.
Yeah.
So that we can get down to the nitty gritty. I mean, if we really want to know, like, we want them to be able to open up and have that comfort level.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, we are on to future business.
Go ahead.
Stuff set. We have ethnic studies update for next time, and we're also going to be bringing forth a resolution. So that's kind of future business. Diversity, recruitment, and hiring on the 9th. Transportation update on the 23rd. Fair Act update on March 9th, LCAP presentation in April, and spring study session to be determined. So is there other future business for, let's just take for next board meeting?
So I believe the SIPSAs are coming back. No, I'm sorry. Is it 2 board meetings from now?
Wait, what do you
So
Yeah,
what's
February 9th.
The student plans, the SIPSAs.
Oh, okay.
Is that how you say it? Is that the acronym?
Yeah, SIPSA. Yeah, you guys held them over until the February 9th meeting.
So I would like Cliff, if you could just explain next meeting kind of what we should be looking for, what was expressed to the principals, and just kind of give us an overview of what the SIPSAs have been in the past and maybe what they've maybe evolved into.
Yeah, I could give a quick update.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
I don't know when. It's not going to be next meeting, but the secondary distance learning hybrid group, we're getting down to like actually having something to present and show.
Oh, great.
Our next meeting is after the next board meeting, so it wouldn't be then, but we possibly could come in February. We've got 3 meetings before that February 9th meeting, so we should be able to come with a product.
Oh, good. Okay.
So
we do have to adjourn to closed session. We won't have anything to report out afterwards, though.
So at this
Oh,
point,
wait, I have one more thing for next time, maybe the time after. Next week, I think it's going to be, or next time, I think it's going to be a bear because of the resolution and stuff. But I would like, and I know Liz will probably take you a couple weeks or so. I would like to have a discussion about what our jurisdiction is, what our responsibilities are with students off campus.
Yes.
Like, I mean, now with like social media, there's things on Instagram, on Facebook, like some people have seen things, some people haven't. Like, how should these things be reported? What actually are we responsible for when it comes to our students?
Do you want to have that? Then what we'll want to do is we'll want to invite legal.
Yeah.
To do that presentation. We
Yeah,
can.
Gary, correct me if I may be completely off base, but if a student does something outside of school that's completely, that's like on a vacation during
I better not even answer it right now because but yeah, there
We'll be
are,
having a discussion next time, Ellen. Or
yeah,
the time after.
but but there are things like, I will just say this related to it, that it's a great conversation item that we need to, it could really help inform our public. We know of things that happen even in the summer that there are active police investigations on, and it's although some of those areas are not in our jurisdiction as much as we would like them to be in our jurisdiction, they just are not. And so a lawyer can explain from a legal perspective exactly what is and what's not. And so we can get somebody for that. I think that's a great thing for us too. And you can pepper them with different general questions on things. Okay.
Can I add though to Liz's list there? I am interested. We are interested in the legal aspect, but beyond that, the cultural also, and I'm particularly intrigued by, I think it was Sal or Sarah who brought up codes of conduct, and I've personally seen those work really well especially when students are a part of producing the codes of conduct. So anyway, I just want to tag on to that discussion about jurisdiction, also other innovative ways that we can, create that culture of student staff behaviors that are, self-generating, self-perpetuating, such as a code of conduct.
I know that
we already have those. I don't know, but I've seen something like that at CASA that I was really impressed with.
When I was at Tamales, all athletes had to sign a code of conduct that dictated their conduct outside of school, especially as far as drinking and that kind of stuff. So things that they did outside of school directly affected their ability to play on the team. So I know it's possible.
I'll work with Board President Pon to, and I would encourage you, what we'll need is for you to come up with some scenarios so that we can present it to whoever's presenting so they can come prepared to respond to those scenarios. So if you want to think of some common scenarios, you certainly,
well, the stuff that happened over Christmas break, right? With harassment.
I would come up with general scenarios related to that, and then we'll get someone to cover it. All right.
I am adjourning this meeting. We are moving into closed session.
Moving in, and you'll open us up, right, Matthew?
Thank you, everybody who came to the meeting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So can we just use the same?
No, because they left.
We can't use the same thing we used in the beginning for closed session? I'm talking to myself.
Okay.
We are back in session, and we have one item to report out of closed session. We are readmitting.
So just before you get started, just as a notation, we do not have anything as mentioned to report out from our last session in closed, but we failed to report out what took place earlier at 4:45 in which seems like a very long time ago, on a student readmit, and we want the student to get back into school.
So we are readmitting expelled student number 50 back into secondary school. Okay. and we are adjourned. Nighty night.
Thank you.